So Link Master Al won't be here today. He is up in Quebec. Okay, we are live. That's good. All right, everybody. So first off, welcome. Again, I'm surprised we'll get more people coming in. But do we have any questions off the bat?
I do.
Okay, go for it.
How do I eliminate duplicates on contacts?
Oh, good question. On your Mac or on your uh, iOS device?
Both.
Okay, I'm going to show you on the Mac. I'll demonstrate it. Let's share my screen. Okay. So if I go to contacts, first thing I always recommend uh, if you're going to purge your duplicates in contacts, hang on here, we'll make it so it's less busy. There we go. I always like to make a backup first. So I go into, gosh, it's been so long since I made a backup. Export contacts archive. And this doesn't take up much room, but what it does is it will export your entire contacts file. So if anything goes wrong, you have it. And I recommend people do this periodically. So I click contacts archive. And what I would do in a case like this is I would do it, and it always does the date. And then I would put pre-purge, because when we're all done, if we do a backup and it's the same date, it'll just overwrite that same file. So the idea here is you just do this and you go pre-purge and go like that. And again, it was contacts file export, not vcard. That would only be an individual one, contacts archive. And so we go there, and then actually, if I can look here, you can see this whole file, and I have thousands of contacts, was 98 megabytes is all. So I'll cancel that. Then to go to your question is you go up here to the word card. And when you go down here, you say, look for duplicates. And when you click look for duplicates, so I have 6 duplicate cards and 1 duplicated entry. The duplicate cards have the same name, but different information, and a card containing duplicated information were found. Do you want to merge duplicates? So I say yes. So I'm going to merge the duplicates. And what it did is it took 2 cards that were similar for all intents and purposes and combined them. Now, if you had a lot of them, I always go up here and say, look for duplicates again. And there's none found. But what I do in most cases is say, do that a few times, and you'll maybe get one that just won't resolve itself. So if that's the case, then just go ahead and just don't worry about it. Then when you're all done, you can go back again and go to File and go to Export, Contacts Archive, and now say Post Purge. And that way, if for some reason you lost one and it wasn't good, you've just got it. So that's how to do it on the Mac. I'm going to show you on the iPhone. And unfortunately, I'll bet you it's going to sync and I won't have any. But
And before we leave that, if you need to restore, is there anything, is it straightforward?
yeah, so here, good question, Bev. Um, So the weird thing is, if you go to restore, let's say a week later, you've added 12 more contacts and you realize some were missing. If you restore, you're going to restore it from the last backup you did.
Yeah.
So while you'll fix what happened then, you're not necessarily going to, and then you can't merge them. It kind of, what it does is restoring is erase my current file and restore it from that other file there. And there's no way to accomplish that merge, so to speak.
So, but if you make a mistake or something when you're doing that stuff and you want to use your backup to go back to your backup, how does that?
So then what you do is you go into import
Ah,
from that. But what I would do is I would go into my Finder and I can go by recent here. Well, I know it went into my iCloud Drive, so I'll go by date modified. Hmm. I don't know why it's not showing up like, oh, it was in my documents, wasn't it? Here it was. There it is, ABBU. So now if I double click this, this would be my new contacts file. So quit contacts and then double click this contacts file, or pre-purge would be the one here. Does that make sense?
yeah.
And
And
if you
oh,
double click on it, it will fire it up.
and Ken, before you leave that concept, I have contacts, all contacts and iCloud contacts, and I was trying to look for the number of contacts in each to make sure that they're all in iCloud where I want them. How and where do you, I did a quick search and I couldn't find where I can see the
Right
number.
here at the very bottom of whatever you're selected, it shows how many cards you have.
No, I'm not seeing that. Okay.
Okay, so watch my screen.
Okay, wait a
So if
minute.
I go into MacNexus demo iCloud and see, actually, it's not showing here.
Wait a minute.
Let
Okay.
me see if I go to my all iCloud and scroll to the very bottom.
Oh, okay.
It
I
shows me 1,736 cards. Now, if I go to all contacts and I scroll down, it is two more cards, which were the ones that were in my MacNexus demo.
okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good questions. All right, so that's contacts. I'm going to get that off the screen because YouTube likes to tell you you shouldn't be sharing your information. Now, let me see if I can do it on my iPhone. I'll show you on that where it is. Where is my share iPhone?
Oh, and Ken, just to finish that up, like I have one more in my all contacts. Should I just move them all to iCloud and then do
If
a
you have
search for
one that's in,
duplicate?
you have one additional one in there that's not in the other.
Yes.
If you're doing it on your Mac, just slide it over to cloud.
And then do a duplicate, search for duplicates.
No, because it should move it to iCloud and it should not create a duplicate, but you could check that. Because
Okay, thank you.
so what happens is it's so the on the side is more or less like albums in photos where you can have one photo in different albums. So it doesn't duplicate the contact. It just says, so like, let's say you made a list of, uh, you know, poker buddies and you slid them into a list. you're not duplicating the contact. You're just saying, oh, include John Doe in my poker contacts, but it's also in my regular contacts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And two icons above your music icon.
What?
Farther down, see your music icon, go two up. That should be, oh, no, it looked like it was,
That's calculator.
yeah, the mirroring icon looks much like,
Yeah. Oh, here it is. They've changed it. All right, so
plus
so
I
I'm
was trying to
trying.
look at your screen through my bifocal, so.
So I'm not sure if I go to apps, contacts. Because by the way, you used to not be able to make lists or what we used to call groups in on iOS devices, and you can now. Contacts, boom, boom, boom. No, so let me go to contacts. I have to move this window out of the way. It usually pops up and says you have duplicate contacts. Which mine won't now because I did it, but I'm just trying to think. Yeah, well, let's do this. Let's go to AI and say, on iPhone, how to check for duplicate contacts. Now I'm doing this in Safari in the URL bar at the top, okay? So I'm just asking that questions, how to check for duplicate contacts on the iPhone. So then when I hit reply, your first response here is Google Gemini. And it's just so useful because it goes out and searches multiple websites and it brings you right to it. So open the Contacts app and look for duplicate found alert below your own card at the top. So let's go to that. Below my own card at the top. It would be right here. So I'm not showing any because I just cleared them up. So anybody else go to this, and right below your card, does it say anything that you have duplicate contacts on your either iPhone or iPad? Okay, well, guess nobody's got them. So that's a good way to check. And again, because they sync, if I do it on the Mac, that's what fixed it on my phone. Because I know it was on the phone a bit before the 6 that were there. I just hadn't addressed it. So luckily, I hadn't addressed it. Oh, you know what? Yeah, but I don't want to mess up my contacts. I could bring in that old pre-purge contacts and it would show it again. But anyway, that's the best. But here, the big takeaway here is I just used AI because I did a search at the top of Safari. I just typed in what I wanted, and the first reply is AI. Now, sometimes you would put something in like best apple
Yeah.
pie
Even.
recipe.
I have 7.
So if I do that, you'll notice there's no AI coming up, okay? And you know, these top ones are usually sponsored ones and things like that. But you can also say AI, and if you click AI, it will again use Gemini and give you, it goes out and searches a lot of websites. And what it does there is it just kind of improves the whole algorithm.
Great. How to get into AI? So,
Yeah, you click on the AI. It's so this and the thing here that's a big deal is this is Google's Gemini. And yes, we always talk about, you know, the intrusiveness of Google and what it looks for and things like that. But it is what Apple is starting to use. So we'll when the Worldwide Developer Conference comes up in June, June 6th, 8th through 12th, or I believe it is, they will divulge, because we've been promised AI in the iPhone and the Mac for 2 years. Well, finally, we're going to get it. And I think it's very smart. Apple was late to the game. And by being late to the game, everybody is rushing to get all these servers. Everybody else, it's the race to be the biggest and the best, to be what's called first mover advantage.
this is just
And Apple pretty much missed the boat
well,
on
this is a
that.
place to go to.
And that way, by missing the boat, they can't go hire many good engineers, because they're all being taken up, and there's these huge bidding wars for good engineers and things like that. So Apple very smartly has decided, well, and when the big hitters out there are Chat GPT, which we'll talk about in a second, Perplexity, Claude, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, and Grok. And what Apple did is, I don't know if you're aware, but Google pays Apple $4 billion a year to be the default search on an iPhone. Because, you know, Google makes their money by displaying ads and selling the demographic information to the ad people. So you can see that that's very lucrative. And they offer services, most of them for free, because it's ad based. Just like I'm looking at the screen right here. Here I searched for apple pie, and then here's some, well, Facebook probably pays for that ad, but let's do this. Let's look for Chevy Corvette. So I looked for Chevy Corvette. So these first ones are sponsors. So in other words, they're paying Google to have this be Chevrolet.com to be the top one above Gold Rush Chevrolet. And of course, these are all done like with local. It knows where my internet on-ramp is, so it does it accordingly. So these sponsored results are how Google makes its money, how they can afford to pay Apple $4 billion a year. Well, that wraps around into the whole situation with using Google Gemini, which is Google's AI. And Google has built a huge infrastructure. They're not the biggest, but they're very big, with all these server farms to do AI. And the way AI works, it's just like, in its simplest form, think of it as Google search on steroids. So actually, let me go into Grok and show you an example of this. So I'm going to go into grok.com. And I'm planning a trip to Monument Valley, and I'm gonna say best sunrise photography, and I can use my voice. Locations. Near the View Hotel in Monument Valley. June 10th. So I'm going to do that. Now, what you want to see here is look what happens here. It's identifying key spots. It's going out and searching all these different, it searched the web. This was only 10 results. It went back, well, it was more than that, but I've seen it when I'm doing searches. It will go up and search 50 different websites. So that's why I say it's Google search on steroids. And AI is so much more than that. But for our application here today, it went through and consolidated that and came up with this. And if you'll notice, even down here, practical tips, it's even showing you where they got some of that information. And they can even dive in deeper. So then, and it's saying, oh, do you also want the Monument Valley sunset spots? Well, sure I do.
Oh my goodness. All right.
So anyway, it goes out and it's searching images and everything else. And the reason I gave it the date was because then it'll include that, and it does different things. And then there's techniques and all that. So, right down here, 30 sources. So if we knew which websites to check, we could go in and it might be buried 3 pages deep in that website. Well, AI went in to these 30 sources, extracted the pertinent information, and gave it to you in a way that works. So what happened though, this was the first one, and it was best sunrise photography near View Hotel in Monument Valley, and I gave it the date. Okay. So it tells me sunrise and sunset. I did this when I was up in Bend, Oregon, doing a lunar eclipse at night. And it actually even went out and checked. I asked it for, I actually asked it specifically. I was having considerable mobility issues, so I was only good for about 100 yards. I didn't want it to give me a 5-mile hike to go do the full lunar eclipse that night. So I said something with easy access within about 100 yards of a car. And it found that, but then it also was smart enough to go and did a forecast for that night and pointed me to where there would be less likelihood of clouds because it was a cloudy night. Now, the interesting thing about that is that, and this is where with no matter what AI you use, and you guys probably have heard this before because it's so important that log in, even if it's a free account with these, because you can go back in and check it, but also it remembered my mobility issues. So when the next day when I asked it, where is a good sunset location near Bend, Oregon? And it said, oh, okay, well, with your mobility issue, I recommend these. It's easy access from a car. So much so that then a few months later, I went up to Mount Lassen, and I was looking for a spot to do photos there, and it restricted where I could go. And I said, no, 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 okay, I'm good for like 300 yards now and stuff. And so, but by being signed in, it remembers you. And the best part is you can go in and see all your old history right here. Here's a whole bunch of all my different things I've asked over time. And I can go here and even search within those searches. And you'll notice here's my newest one is I'm going to show you guys in a minute. We're going to go through the Apple product line and talk about the different products. So that's why it's good to be signed in. And once you find one you like, because they limit the amount of searches you can do. If you get kicked out, it's usually a time thing. You can get so many searches over a certain amount of time. And that also is dependent on how busy those AIs are. They're trying to make their money by selling people what's called tokens or the ability to interact with it. And it's not been figured out yet, but I really like the idea of using Gemini with Sunrise. I don't have an account with Gemini, and well, I do, but I'm using it through Safari because in the fall, when we get new operating systems, Gemini will be built in, and Apple's going to pay Google $1 billion a year. Now, when you think about that, that offsets the $4 billion that Google is paying Apple. So really, it's kind of like, well, we'll trade you this for that. So I think it's super wise. And for $1 billion a year, there is no way, even if Apple had already built an entire AI system, it would cost them much more than that to maintain it. So what they're doing is they're using the tool of Google Gemini to run it. And the best part is because we know that Google, because it's ad-based and demographic-based, you're not the customer, you're the product. So therefore, the Apple has done it where when you do it within Apple, within your iPhone and using SIRI, it's siloed. That information does not get to Google. What they're doing is they're using the tool of Google to do the AI, but it's strictly privately and securely within the Apple infrastructure. And I think it's brilliant. And of note, so the way AI works is you give it a request just like I did. And that's really simple. And that's just text. It goes out to a supercomputer, and that's what's called an inference computer. It goes out and does it, and then it comes back to you. Well, it turns out that the Apple silicon chips that Apple has designed are incredible at AI. So what they actually do is they process a little bit of that before they send it out to the supercomputer. And then when it comes back, it will have some of that information stored on board. So even if you didn't have an internet connection, some of that AI stuff would still be available to you. And in fact, if you have recently been trying to buy Mac minis, they've been in very low supply because it's such an incredible platform. There are people that are taking these Claude, which is, I forget which one Claude is, but anyway, Claude, and loading it on a Mac mini, and it becomes your own little AI machine within it, and it's not having to go out and make all these calls that would cost money. It's so amazing what's going on with it. But the chip inside the Apple Silicon is and it wasn't planned this way, but it turns out that it just is perfect for it. So it takes some of the load off that big supercomputer. And then the other thing that happens in these big supercomputers, the inference computer, the huge ones that they're building out, just So much so that the amount of energy that'll be used in the US will be twice what it is right now in the next 5 years because of all this compute. Those are what's called the learning computer. So in the old days, a year ago, the old days, Google, the way Google search works so well and all other searches work is just like Spotlight on your computer. It goes and reads everything. So in Spotlight on your computer, it reads everything that's on your computer securely and privately. And it even goes down into PDFs and reads every word in that PDF and it categorizes it. So if you go up to the little magnifying glass and do Spotlight, it doesn't just look for file names, it looks within the files for certain words. Like you could have the word, Montezuma, for instance. And anywhere the word Montezuma is in there, the search will show you that. Well, Google search essentially does the same thing, non-AI, but regular Google search does that. They basically go out and they send out these things called spiders that go out and essentially read and index every word that's out there. And obviously that's a big task in the beginning, but in the beginning it was huge because you had to make up for what had been there for decades. Now it just goes out and has to search anything new, and it searches that and indexes it. So when you do a Google search, it comes back with stuff and it gives you the list in Google search of the web pages. Well, the one of the simplest forms of AI does the same thing, but it digs deep and then it analyzes what I'm asking and tries to add more to it. And that's initial AI. I kind of give you an example of that was when I used to do I'll say Shlomo, because if I say SIRA, it makes everybody's things go off. So in the early days of Shlomo, I used to give a presentation where I would go and I would do speech to text dictation. And I would say, will I need an umbrella tonight? And it would type that out perfectly because that's what you want from text to speech. But if I put it into Shlomo and I said, will I need an umbrella tonight? It would come back and give me the weather forecast for this evening. So it drew that conclusion between that. That is very rudimentary and early AI, basically letting you speak in normal language and having you get a result you want. So, and I just have to keep setting the stage on that because AI it's here. It's got so many depths to it that it's just amazing. So, are there any AI questions on anything I covered there or even speculation beyond? Use it as a tool. So actually, let's go even to the iPhone. And let's see here. So on the iPhone, if I go to, let me hit hide others. On the iPhone, if I go to Safari and I type, let's see, up in the top, I type best Milky Way locations. That's why I'm going to Monument Valley for I'll get you in a second, Randy. Best Milky Way locations.
It won't give you the candy bars.
Why won't it? Well, something's frozen here. Okay. Oh, it's not, it's May 9th. You said June earlier. Best Milky Way locations for photos. May will be 12th in Monument Valley. So now I'll hit return. And in here, again, just like on the Mac, it's right here. Oh, so that's interesting. So the other thing is like this is this Forrest Gump place. It's really kind of cool that it's the it was in the Forrest Gump movie. When you're looking down, it's a beautiful, here, I'll pull it up. This is the highway into Monument Valley. And people, I mean, it's an active highway, so you got to be really careful, but that's pretty cool. That might not be correct because, oh, it is at certain times of year. Okay, so it's not a recreated. Sometimes people put different things there. But let me go back to this. So for stunning, early May offers excellent positioning, and it tells me the different points. So again, on your iPhone, if you put it up in the URL bar and ask it, it'll give you AI as a choice. And here it says it went to 7 different sources. So, all right. So that's it on the phone. So any questions? Oh, Randy, you've got your hand up. Go for it.
Sure, just a real question and then just a funny one.
A
I
real
noticed
question?
the funny question first. I always wondered, could I ever find out anything secret like the In-N-Out Burger secret menu? You know, I just wondered if those secrets remain hidden or if AI
Oh
knows the
no, I've
secret
done it.
menus.
I did that exact thing. So if we go here, I'll just type in and out secret menu. And here AI does it. And sure enough, here's the secret menu.
Make sure you put that link in the chat.
We'll just put it in Safari.
Right, okay.
In-N-Out secret menu. And see,
Excellent.
I'm not signed into an account or anything
Oh, okay,
here.
okay.
This is Google Gemini is inside Safari, and it's going to become more integrated. So when we use Shlomo to do searches, it will key in and use Gemini as the driver of that information. And actually, it's funny because I just did one of the protein ones 2 days ago, and I didn't know there are more versions of onions, and I love onions. And they have, you can have your onions 6 different ways. So, oh, a puppy patty, an unseasoned patty for dogs. Oh, and a root beer float. I have a friend that loves root beer floats. There we go. And the fried mustard is really good, but you have to get it with a bun. I'm not getting them with a bun these
Well,
days.
now you have 2 friends that love root beer floats.
Yeah. Oh, Bob, if you want, then the root beer float. I got a buddy I used to golf with. He lives in Arizona or in New Mexico now, but there's a place right on Highway 49 as you exit the freeway going towards Grass Valley. That's the Grass Valley Highway. Well, they actually have one in Grass Valley, but right there, it was an old Dairy Queen. This restaurant this fast food place is incredible. It's called Burger and Cream.
Yep.
And he says it's the best root beer floats in the world. So Burger and Cream.
I stopped there last year, but I didn't get a float.
Yeah, well, that's where I first found out about it because we were coming home from golf and he wanted to get a root beer float. And I got to tell you, they have really good pastrami sandwiches. So anyway, Randy, what was your other thing?
Well, just the serious question, and I just wanted to put in, like Bob and I are probably trying to put in some links into chat for everybody. There's so many different AI providers, but I'm just looking up, it looks like it's really about 5 or 6, the Chat GPT,
Well, here, let
Google.
me display it on the screen and then
There
we
you
can put
go.
that link
Yeah,
in there.
that would help.
And it used to be, and of course you can go back to when Pete did it, there were certain ones that are good at certain things.
Yeah.
So top AI site. So here it says best all purpose. So what I can do now, I'm going to make life easy here for everybody because I'll take this search I just did, which was not super complex, top AI sites, okay? But if I go down here in this, I can do here and it copies the text. I can create a shareable link, which would bring that same search right back into it. I can send it by email. I can send it at x.com, in WhatsApp, in Facebook. Or if I just click and copy this link, I'll go over and put it in chat. And now that link will bring up the same thing I just did. But the other thing you can do is if you hit copy text, let's look at that. And I'll just open a simple text or text edit. Come on, where's my text edit? Well, actually, I can just create a new note. I'll just do that way. So I'll create a new note and I hit Command V and it's all right there, including links that are working. And obviously it didn't copy because I said copy text, but when I click on the link, you'll get also, because it's nice because it does show you stuff. Oh, then the other thing is I can add to this. So it tells me this information, and this is another big deal in AI that is so important. In fact, I'm going to back out and do it's an example I used a long time ago with an app called Sound whatever, but I'm going to say best hotels in South Lake Tahoe for May 27th, 27 through 29. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit that. So it didn't do AI right off the bat because it's selling you space, but let's put it into AI. Oh, for my. So unfortunately, hopefully it knows I'm doing May. Yeah, it corrected it. So now what I can do, so this is AI, top recommended, gives you all that. But let's say allows pets. So now I'm adding to the criteria as I go along. Okay. Oh, but I want to be close to state line. Close to state line. So now it'll give the hotels closer to state line. And then I'm going to say, let's see, they got them here. Wow. Oh, it's the shoulder season, so that's why everything's pretty cheap. Pet fees gives you all that. And then here, so this 287. So I'm going to say under $200 per night. So I'm further refining my search because it remembers everything I searched for before. Perfect. And so then my list is further refined. And of course, this is how Google is monetizing that by showing this over here. And then look at this. It gives you a chart. Now, I do have to say this, I use Google Maps for looking stuff like that, but the deal is you could put in whatever the criteria you want is. You know, if you say Lake Tahoe, well, it's going to search the whole lake. You could say Tahoe City. You can define it. You can, you know, has a spa, has a gym, and just it'll continue to search and search. And it goes out like here, it's Expedia and 13 other websites. So it's just very, very useful, and you can continue to refine it. So when I ask AI something, I first try to give it a lot of information because I want it to consolidate the results to what's more applicable to me. But then I can say, okay, don't worry about this. And then it comes up with other results. And I mean, this is just the reason I used the hotel thing because it was easy to just add things as you go along. So does that help? And you got the link there, Randy, too. So and this obviously we're being recorded too, you guys. So all right. Any other AI questions? And actually, if you have a unique question or something you want me to try, this is a good time. Just tell me and we'll type it in. I think I've beaten the dead horse. Well, let's see how did that happen? Beating a dead horse. How did that start? Being a guitarist or flogging a dead horse originated in the mid-19th century to describe useless, futile efforts stemming from the literal imagery of weeping a deceased horse. Oh, weeping a dead horse to make it go faster. Now, that's actually pretty funny. So, I mean, sad, but funny. So, literal meaning. So, all right, we got a couple questions. Good.
Okay.
Chris, go for it.
So this has been a while ago, but I was researching or looking up like how much dirt I would need to buy to fill a garden bed that was like, I forget, 14 inches by 4.5 feet by,
Yep.
okay. And AI gave me, I mean, I got, you have a choice of what answer you want to choose. And I looked at the one that was AI and it was crazy wrong. It was a huge amount. And I did it a couple times and I got several different answers with AI and noticed a little sentence underneath that said, this answer may not be correct. And I've seen that since then, and I just wondered like how has it gotten, this was last summer. Has it
Oh my
gotten,
God, that's like ancient, right?
yeah, I guess so. Has it gotten a lot better or how, in this case,
Yeah.
I knew the answer was way out of the ballpark, so I double checked, but how else can you,
So
guard against that?
great question. Great question, Chris. So first of all, if it is something critical, like if you were going to order dirt, I would, even if it didn't say the little disclaimer, because I ask it medical questions too, and you do. So when AI lies, it's called, what they call it is a hallucination. And it happens. So what I do is I primarily use Grok because it's very powerful and very good. And but if it is something that's critical, like if I'm asking it about medication or symptoms, or in your case, how much dirt am I going to order? Well, before I order the dirt, I run the exact question. I copy and paste that exact question into like Safari and have it check Gemini.
Uh-huh.
And I also can run it through like Chat GPT or one of those.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And then if you get three different answers, keep checking.
Yeah.
But if you get one that's way off and two that are close, because that's just a calculation. And you know,
Yeah, I know.
the landscapers have that down. They can look at it and tell you what it is. So, um, yeah. So I think that it's and when it's way off, you know it, but it's like, oh, okay, it might be a little off. But I recommend multiple ones, especially if it's something mission critical. But on the other hand, this has been well, there were some examples and I listened to this he's a lemon law lawyer. He has a podcast called Lado and the Law, and it's a wonderful podcast, and he's really hilarious. And he finds these really obscure, simple cases that come up, and he talks about them, and not in a legal sense, more just in a human sense. But he's he's brought up a few of these where when a lawyer is advocating a case or adjudicating a case, he has to give references to prior case law, which means you're supposed to reference real decisions. Obviously, you want to reference the ones that work in the favor of what you're trying to project. And what happens is some of these were just made up out of whole cloth, and lawyers were getting in trouble. So, and in fact, a smart judge would use AI to check it. But I remember when my brother was in the he had a guy in the district attorney's office where he was the DA, and there was one guy in there that was this guy just was an encyclopedia of knowledge, and everybody would go ask him and he would tell them where this case is and everything else. And so uh and that works. But even then, your mind can change things. So just but the lawyers can get sanctioned for that because it's a big deal. And so I would check it. But AI now is, in fact, many of the good AIs. When you ask AI something, it's your agent, so to speak. That's the acronym or the what it's called. And now they're taking adversarial in business situations and stuff, adversarial agents to question the results and to further, it's called steel manning, something where you're presenting a new business idea and then you want someone to give a counter to it because you want to, you're all hyped to do this, but you're probably not seeing the whole picture and what can happen. So, you go back and forth. So AI is starting to fix itself. In the early days of AI, students would be putting and making papers, have AI make the paper, and then it wasn't really their own work, so to speak, because it was just a shortcut, which when you think about it, it's a shortcut they're going to use later in life anyway. So, help them learn to use the shortcut. But what was happening is the teachers were upset because it was kind of plagiaristic. So they developed an AI that teachers could use to check to see if it was AI. And so, yeah, and it's changing. But I think in your case, if you put the other thing in, and it's a real world example, but if it was correct, how much easier did that make it,
Well, I was just kind of shocked because, as you say, it just is a simple calculation, which I didn't know how to, I didn't know which you multiplied by, but it really is a simple calculation. So I was really quite surprised that it was
Yeah,
so
it's
long.
length and width and depth, right?
Right. Yeah. But thank you.
Well, but now, so let's say you have one that, let's say you didn't have a rectangle or a square. Let's say it was a different shape. So, and you knew a few of those shapes, but you had a drawing of it or you could take a picture of it. Believe it or not, that's the big thing in AI is taking and being able to take images and getting the information off of it. So like if you presented an image and you said, this is that length and this is that length of two that you knew, and if everything's in scale, as long as you didn't distort the photo, it could reach in and do that. And it's amazing. I had it, there was an instance where I saw a photograph of something and I just couldn't figure out where it was. So I asked, I wanted to know, it was about I wanted to do a Milky Way shot up at one of the lakes up by the Sierra Buttes. And I, I had this picture and I said, where was it? And it turns out it gave me where it was, but in fact, then the problem was it was not in the direction of the Milky Way. So, but yeah, it's just amazing with images. Well, you can see that when you go into a photo. If let's go back to my iPhone. So I'm going to go into my photos and I'm going to do a search for flowers. Okay, so I have 1,500 plus flowers. So now it's got a flower.
We're not seeing it.
So what?
All
Oh,
we're
I'm sorry.
seeing,
It's
there you
not
go.
connecting. Sorry. Thank you, Bob. I don't know why it wasn't. Oh, it's because I did it on the phone. That's why. I was doing my phone directly and it kicks this out. So now I'm going to go here and here's flowers. So here is a flower. So if I click this and I click well, no, this is interesting because it didn't do that. So let me go and it usually does it on the phone really. There we go. So this, I never did this. And it looked this up since this is more recent since AI. Those other photos were older. So it says it thinks it's a garden dahlia. So, and those are fake. Oh, look at this. Elf dock.
Wow.
So that's all done within my phone and does not go out over the internet. Now, if I get one like this that said look up plant, if I click on that, it does go out on the internet. And I guess this is also a dahlia. And what's interesting, this one looks just like it, same coloring. So that's what happens on your phone. So for some reason, it didn't identify this, but it says plant. Yeah, so let me go back up. Go back a screen. All right, so that's how your phone does it inside, and it does the same thing like finding cars and things like that. So that is, and the majority of that happens within the phone, and that's why Shlomo has gotten worse over time in the phone because it's trying to stay private and secure rather than go out over the internet. So, all right, Ellie and then Harmon on the questions. Go ahead, Ellie.
Well, and now I have two questions. First of
Good.
all,
Well, we'll keep going.
going back to using ChatGPT, I've been using it a lot. It's terrific. But I've run into a problem in that I archive a search and then I can't find the archive. And I've actually gone to ChatGPT
Are you
and asked.
signed into an account?
Well, that's what I thought I had an account, but I've got it on my other screen here right now, and I don't see how to sign into the account. And I don't want to get Plus, which is the one you pay for. Is that the issue that I need to pay for it?
Well, possibly. So what, are you on a Mac or what are you
Yeah,
doing
I'm on my Mac laptop, and I have the latest Mac OS.
And are you
Yeah,
doing it in the, are you doing it in the browser? Because there's no app on the Mac for it, right?
right. No, I went into chatgpt.com and I
Let me
have it
just
up here.
look.
Now, here's
So I'm,
another thing. This is a 2018 MacBook Pro with an Intel processor, and I'm just wondering if
well
that could be
now,
an issue.
okay, great point. So let's talk about that. So Apple Intelligence or Apple's AI that is going to interact, and when I say interact, it's going to take and on your iPhone, for instance, if it's a newer iPhone that can do AI, it will even instead of saying, "Hey, how do I dim my screen?" You don't go ask that. What it is say, "Please dim my screen." In other words,
Uh-huh.
it will start to interact with your device. So this is where it gets beyond just search on steroids. But your question about an Intel chip, so your computer will not support Apple Intelligence.
Ah,
It has to have the M series Apple Silicon chip. But the thing that I've been doing here in Safari is not dependent on my computer being able to do Apple Intelligence or AI, or in your case, using Chat GPT, because this is essentially just you're using the interface of the web browser, or on the phone, you have a GPT app, you have a Grok app, you have a Gemini app. So those don't require, they're basically the app can run and then it goes out to the supercomputer to get your results back. So if we think about this in an old context of, they used to have these big mainframe computers in a business, and then you just had a little dumb terminal that was a screen and a keyboard. Well, that's okay because your dumb little screen and keyboard doesn't have to do the heavy lifting. You're asking the big computer to do the work, and then it's spitting back a result to you. So in your case, ChatGPT in Safari, you could do it on a 10-year, well, if the browser supported it, there would be nothing keeping you from doing it on an old machine, and even with a fairly slow internet, because when I type in my question about where's the best hotel in South Lake Tahoe, that's a text line that goes out to the computer. It gets the information, and just like when you do a web search, it's bringing that stuff back, and it gives you just text dialogue, which takes up very little room, and it comes very quick. And then as you dig deeper, you're just interacting back and forth. So on the other hand, when Apple Intelligence gets so good with Gemini that on your Mac, you can say, "Oh, turn on my do not disturb for the next 30 minutes," or something like that.
uh-huh.
It'll do that inside. But other than that, this question and answer, or as I like to say, Google search on steroids, is simply just like you use the browser now. Your browser, you're logging in to ChatGPT or OpenAI.com, and you're asking the big computer something, and it's spitting back a result to you, and that's it. But remember, you can continue to ask it other things. But I would say when you go to OpenAI.com or that, like you can see on the screen, because I have a free low end OpenAI account, and I'll tell you in a minute why I don't like OpenAI, but I do use it as a backup. Now, you got to remember on your Apple devices. Well, I take that back. If you're on an M series chip or a newer iPhone, sometimes if you asked Shlomo to go search for something, if it can't find it or it can't answer your question, like do a currency conversion, something like that. It says, do you want to use Chat GPT? So what that, and you can say yes, but that's only in the Apple Intelligence ones. And it goes out and asks the question of Chat GPT because Apple paid Chat GPT to do that. And that's essentially what's happening going forward with Gemini.
Okay.
And that will still be not you. We won't experience it until fall when it rolls out in the new operating systems. But your computer that's an Intel computer, your only on-ramp is through the browser.
Well, I've
And
had excellent results getting just what you talk about here, doing a query and getting it, and then and getting very specific answers, then adding two questions to it and doing all that. My problem has been, and it says, "Do you want to archive this?" And I click yes, and I archive it, and then
well, so the
I
history happens automatically, and that's different. But what I would do is I would log in up in the, well, I'll just log in really
I'm
quick.
looking for a login on the screen right now, and
Yeah,
I don't
so,
have one, and I don't know why.
oh, it had to send me a code. I'm not going to do this now, but
All right.
it should, well, wait a minute. Let's just ask,
I've asked it the question, how do I find archives? Blah, blah, blah. And it
well,
says,
no, it's
well, just go
history.
over to the bottom of your,
I think archiving is different. So,
it
and
must
I'm
be,
not
because
sure.
I can see recents, but there, I can't find I want to archive something. I click on archive and then I can't find it.
Well, let me see here.
I can't find the spot in the left-hand column that
Yeah,
should have a word archive on it, but there's
well,
no, yeah.
on ChatGPT on my phone, it's under recents.
Well, and is that it that they're using two different vocabulary
Well,
words
recents
here?
and history, yeah. Archive means kind of save it as its full thing. But hang on, I'll get logged into
Well,
ChatGPT
what
here. I've
they
got a
imply
Chrome.
that there is a archive button in the left-hand column there, and there isn't. It's just recents, and so it's just frustrating. This isn't a huge issue, but I just thought
Well,
maybe if I
but
got a newer machine, I would have better interfaces.
no. If you were doing it in the browser, it would be exactly the same.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm logging into my Chat GPT here. So if I go over, so if you look here, first of all, do you have a thing that looks like oh no, that's not an account up there. So yeah, it asks if I want to upgrade. But look at here under my recents.
Yeah, and I've got that.
Well, that's all your history right there.
Okay, but some of them are ones, that's all it is history. It's not like it's archived forever.
Well, it
Or is
is.
it? Am I misunderstanding
Oh
that?
yeah, look, I can keep going down and I don't use ChatGPT a lot. And look, I'm going
Okay.
way, way back. And the best thing is I can search here for let's see, under recents,
Yeah, where's your query
search
on
chats, and I'm gonna go let's look A7. A7. So now it went through and look at this is all the things that have the word
you're
A7.
using a keyword search there.
Well, yeah, and it's searching each of these previous chats. Aurora viewing in California, like here. So it brings up it's my whole history. And this is a free
Okay.
ChatGPT account. I will not pay them a cent. And here's the deal. ChatGPT, so the history of it, and I think it's important because you probably read a little bit in the news about the lawsuit. Well, Elon Musk, and this isn't political at all. Elon Musk is regardless of what you think about him, he's very forward thinking and does some amazing things. Well, he funded and co-founded OpenAI. Now, OpenAI is just that. The idea was, and he put all the money up front and he co-founded it with Sam Altman, but he also brought in a ton of talent that is attracted to working with Elon. And they started OpenAI, or what's commonly known as ChatGPT, as a nonprofit that would allow people to add to the code. Anyone could use it. And the whole idea was because they wanted to make it be the colossus of all AI, because by being open source and transparent, nefarious things could not happen. And the idea was because artificial intelligence, to the people that know, is very scary because of what it can do. And the idea was to build this to be the biggest, the most transparent, the least biased, to make it so that everybody can contribute, anybody can use it, and therefore it becomes the go-to. Well, and he put in $300 million. I forget what it was, but anyway. Then all of a sudden, Microsoft, who's not your best friend, because they had Copilot, decided to, they thought, wow, what an opportunity here. So behind the scenes, and Sam Altman, I mean, if you research him, go ahead and do some AI research about Sam Altman. There's lots of different issues, and I don't know what to believe and what not to. But anyway, the board, it was a nonprofit board, and he decided to, unbeknownst to the board, to hook up with Microsoft and make it a for-profit corporation, which is pretty illegal, first of all, because all the corporate documents and everything to be a nonprofit. And it's so much so that Microsoft owns 26 or 46% of the shares, whatever it is. I mean, 26 versus 24. But anyway, it became a for-profit. So Elon objected to that because no, this was designed and I gave the money and I founded this and brought in all this talent. Well, all that, once it went for profit, that talent left that he brought in, and he walked away from it. But he was the initial investment. So there's a big lawsuit going on right now about it. And while it may seem like Elon is evil because he's asking for a large amount of money, that money is not going to Elon. He has designated it to the OpenAI charity to continue with the nonprofit in OpenAI, even though he has a competitor called Grok that once this happened, he said, man, this is just screwy and that's not what it should be. So he started XAI, and that's what Grok is the own, and it's actually owned by SpaceX now. It got absorbed by SpaceX. So OpenAI, and there's some interesting deaths that have happened to early people in AI and stuff. It's very, very convoluted. I encourage you to look into it because the trial's going on, and it is a definitely for-profit thing. So I won't give them a cent because it's not the way it was designed. I will use them as a backup, and they are finally going, maybe they go with an advertising model. For currently, they're not getting any ad revenue off of me, but I use it as the last resort because to me, morally and ethically, it's wrong. And the other thing is, when a company operates like that, I'm very afraid of AI. It's not, if you're not doing good, how can you say you're going to be for good? And I just, you can bring your own conclusions. I encourage you to look into it. I support Grok, and more than anything, I like Google Gemini because it's going to be interacting with our Apple devices. But I really like how Apple's doing it, where instead of Google getting all of our demographic information, they're going to silo it within Apple, and Apple's paying money for that tool. And that's all it is. And so the nice thing is it will be siloed, and that will probably, well, that'll be my default, although I really enjoy Grok, but I've seen Grok get wrong too. So anyway, that's a long thing, and it brought up some great stuff. So Ellie, didn't you have another question, or was that it?
Well, I was going to ask, I don't switch back to or to photos. I have never, I haven't done any research. What is the white outline that you had on the flowers there? What is that called?
Well, that's actually pretty interesting. So if I'll go back to that. In the newer phones, those that have the newer chip, let me go up to photos. So it'll take a second here. Let me get this down. Okay, it's not doing it on that one. Well, let's see. Oh, well. So, okay, here it goes. So see how that's doing it? I clicked and I can copy that. I can't do it on the screen real easy, but I could actually click it and drag it. Let's see if it'll do it. If I can get it up to another. But anyway, I could drop this into a text.
Ah,
So the trick is with my, and again, this is on the screen. I'm not using my fingers. I'm using my cursor.
uh-huh.
And what I would do down here is I could swipe up from the bottom and go to, say, a text message, and I could paste this right into the text message. But you'll notice what it does is it's eliminating the background,
Right.
and that's built in. Here would be another one.
So
See how it,
that's a function that's on the newer iPhones because I
on the
haven't.
newer iPhones, if the
Okay.
phones support that. Oh, actually, so there's the thing. Actually, here's another way. With this, I can go share, and I could say, go to a message,
Message.
and then boom, it's in a
Okay.
message.
And what's that called? What's that? What's the vocabulary for that particular function?
It's just remove or copy. There's a good question. I
That that's
can't think of the
that's a
name, but
recurring problem. If I knew
it
what the damn word was for a million things, I could
well
look it up, AI it or whatever. But it's like,
it's
what
like
is the white thing?
it's like
You know,
cutout.
it's funny.
So it's the opposite of like when we do pages in Keynote where we say remove background. We're actually
Yeah.
we're removing the background by extracting the image.
And I think that's a cool function. I just never knew what it was called.
Yeah, and then of course, I'll show you in let's go. Let's see, click this. If I go to edit in the newer phones, I can go here and say clean up.
A sticker. Oh, thank you, Lynn.
A sticker, that's it, which is so weird, but yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm going to tell it to
Yeah.
remove, for instance, oh, it's preparing cleanup. This isn't a real good one. Oops, connection interrupted.
Sticker. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, and if you think about it functionally, that's what it's doing.
Right.
You're taking this and sticking it somewhere else, but you don't have a choice on this. If you had 3 flowers, it wouldn't do them. So let's
Uh-huh.
say I want to remove this tree right over here and all of this. Let's see what happens. Pretty good. I can keep doing it. Anyway, it's for getting rid of cars and things like that. And that's part of the phone that supports the AI.
Uh-huh. Very cool.
Yeah. All right. So Harmon, you've been very patient. Go for it.
Well, my question's also about the IDing in the photos. My
Okay.
photos, of course, have the metadata and I know where they're from. But I also have in photos screenshots. Is there a way to have AI tell me where that particular image is?
Yes. So let's go to, so we have our collections. Collections, and actually your it will show us portrait panorama, so media types. Oh, hang on here. Will it let me? By the way, here's your duplicate photos you can do. So for some reason, it's not showing me screenshots. But let's no. Here we go, screenshots. So here's screenshots, okay? So if I go to a screenshot, let's say this, it's not this image, but watch what I can do here. I will take, and I'm gonna copy this photo, okay? Actually, so this is a screenshot. This was Artemis. And I'm gonna go to, actually, I'm going to use Grok because I don't know. Oh, here we go. Here's Google in our Google search on our thing. I can say, what's this? Okay, but can I paste? No, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back. So I've put it on my clipboard, the original one we saw. So let me go back to Grok. And if I say in Grok, what is this photo? And I just pasted it in, okay? It's the Earthrise. And it said it was captured on the Hasselblad. It gives all the information about it because it's been very popular. So if it was on the Artemis shot. But if you wanted to, like, let me see if I can. So, and you can do that with other photos.
It's telling you it's Apollo 8, which is a different photo of the Earth from the moon.
Oh, could be Earthrise photograph. Yeah. Oh, 68. My gosh. And that was just a screenshot I saw on the thing. So that may not have been during Artemis then. So, or was it from Artemis 2? Artemisia? No. It said Artemis to the future. Oh, so it says it wasn't. Interesting. Oh, compare the two Earth rises. I mean, you can get down into these deep wells on all this stuff. So also there is a thing here. Let's talk about images. So here's image, and I can create from a template. I can animate my photos, but I'm going to say, create a Milky Way photo over Half Dome in Yosemite. And then I can ask it to do different things. So what's interesting, there's a photographer I've met, great guy. He's from, well, he spends the summer in Alaska and the rest of the time in Tahoe. And he has a shot of the Milky Way that he spent 4 nights camping up at the top of Glacier Point at this specific spot. And everybody keeps telling him the photo is AI, and it's not. But look how good these are. These are actually, these are videos. So, and it says enhanced quality. Oh yeah, if I wanted to pay for more quality, no. So anyway, don't believe what you see on there. So the other thing I want to point out, you can do if you have good old Google search, and it won't work on with my phone being tethered like this. So in good old Google search, there's right here. And this allows you to, like if it was a landmark, you can take a picture of it and it will immediately tell you what it is. That also is true on our iPhone camera now too. When you're doing it, you can have it it'll read live text, but you can also ask it to tell you to identify that, but you have to take a picture of it. So, oh, that's interesting that this came up. So, because this was a conversation we had in the pre-meeting kind of thing. So, so I don't know if you guys we're talking about AI a little bit. So, and the news is that if I go to Safari here, Waymo is expanded into the Sacramento area. Now, what is Waymo? Waymo is, so the parent company for Google is Alphabet, is what the name of the company is, just like Mega is for Facebook, etc. So Waymo is also part of Alphabet, and the Waymo self-driving cars have no drivers. Now, it's pretty incredible, and they limit the area because what they do is they hypermap it. So the idea is, first of all, we need to think back to this whole thing because, I mean, Pete, bless his heart, Pete McDonough is going to be going in for a driver test at 95 years old and that he's still driving. And I think that's pretty remarkable. But the best thing is what autonomous driving cars are going to do for us. So when you think about your own car, you have depreciation, you have insurance, you have maintenance, and you have however you propel it, whether it be electricity or gas. And those are all factors that play into your per mile cost of your car. And for the most part, the majority of cars sit unused for 98% of the time. So that being said, there are new ways to do it. They have what's called, there's car sharing, like these places where you get a car for 4 hours or 3 days, or you rent a car, things like that. But then now what came up was ride sharing. We've always had taxis. And to get in a taxi, you don't need a driver's license. You're not paying depreciation. You're not paying interest and everything else. So you can get in a taxi. Well, taxis can be hit or miss. They're a little bit pricey because you're having to pay the employee, the taxi driver. So then they went to Uber, and Uber and Lyft kind of democratized it, and it made it, they're independent contractors, and it happened a lot less. But I would have to say that Uber's Uber is not as comfortable as it was in the beginning, even if you get Uber Black and things like that. But if you think about Uber, you don't have to have a license. You don't have to own a car. You can get in and pretty much get an Uber to go anywhere in most places and in a lot of countries. You can have it deliver food to you also, Uber Eats. So Waymo, a long time ago, Google embarked on self-driving cars. And by the way, as was demonstrated in David Pogue's presentation to our group, that was wonderful about Apple's self-driving car, and they put a lot of money into it and stuff. And I think it was ill-suited for Apple to do. They just because building a car is very hard and very complex. So what Waymo does, they used to buy these Jaguar electric cars, and they put a lot of actually, let's do a Waymo car. So we're going to look at an image of a Waymo car. So this is a pretty good one. Here's one with the Waymo car has LiDAR, it has cameras, it's got about $180,000 worth of gear around it. And then they have to buy the car and then they have to fit it. But it doesn't require a driver. And by not requiring a driver, you're cutting the biggest cost of either taxi or Uber out of it. And so what happens is, and with your account, you get in, you don't have to, you can set the temperature in the car which you want, etc. Now, I encourage you all to experience a Waymo, and it's pretty enlightening. It's not perfect, but it's doing very well. But what Waymo does is they approach it a little different because they go in and they hyper map these areas. That's why the areas are limited, because they have these cars going out there and really, really, really super mapping this. So that creates a problem, because what happens if there's a detour or road construction or anything like that? So anyway, sorry. I'm just trying to monitor if any hands come up. If you guys see any hands come up, let me know. But anyway, the by hyper mapping it, it works, but it can't be as flexible to what happens. So there was an incident in San Francisco. Well, what was early on, there was one that was really funny. All the Waymos were in this holding lot overnight, and they all tried to leave, but they were all having to honk at each other, and there's nobody in the car, right? And they're honking because they can't get out. They're all blocked in, and they cured that, of course. But there was a problem in San Francisco where the power went out. That was where that substation in San Francisco failed. And for some reason, it affected what Waymo could do, and they all stopped. Well, then we talk about Tesla. And so the Waymo, so I'll give you an example. I went down to San Francisco. I took my self-driving car with two friends. We went all the way down to San Francisco. This was last summer to look at to watch a collector car auction. And it was very interesting. It was set up kind of, it's more just to see. We weren't trying to buy anything. But we decided for lunch that we wanted to go over to the Ferry Building to a great restaurant, but parking's so tough over there. So we grabbed a Waymo, and it took us over to the Ferry Building in San Francisco. And it couldn't park very close, but it dropped us off. It was great. It was a neat experience. We took an Uber on the way back because Uber could pick us up really close and drop us back. And then when the auction was over, we left, and we drove all the way home in my self-driving car, my Tesla. So it was really and it was a good experience, because Waymo was, and there were tons of Waymos around. So you can see the border here. It's going to be expanding out towards Roseville, but for right now, this is the areas they're covering. And now I see why they limited what they did in Sacramento, is because they're trying to connect all of these areas as they roll it out. Obviously, they've got it up here into the wine up into wine country and things like that. They'll probably expand more of metro. This is another map. This is LA. But anyway, that's where Waymo's doing it. So you do have an opportunity to do it. You get an app just like an Uber and you hail it. And when it pulls up, there's nobody in it, but your name will be on the sign and you use the app on the phone to unlock the car so nobody can jump in and get the car that you've summoned. So anyway, and it's less expensive than Uber, but it's not super cheap. Well, Tesla, let me do here, and we'll go Cybercab. So my I have full self-driving in my car. In fact, my car is updating in the background as we speak. Oh, that's not it. And my car, I drive 99% of my driving time. I am using full self-driving. I have over 10,000 miles of full self-driving. And this is so, and if you think about it, it seems scary, but we all drive. Most of us have two eyes. There's a few of us I know that have only one eye and can still drive. Problem is, it's tough for depth perception. But that being said, we have two eyes and we have what's called binocular vision. So our eyes are both usually facing the same direction. Well, in the Tesla, there are 3 forward-facing cameras. There's 1 rear-facing camera. There's a camera right here on what's called the B pillar. And then there's a camera on the fender. And this camera that's on the fender has the same view you get out of your rear view mirror, the side rear view mirrors. So the big deal with this is if they had tried to do self-driving cars 10 years ago, the computer power wouldn't have been fast enough because processing video is very difficult. So by processing video, hang on, open image in new window. Won't let me do that. There we go. So no. So the 8 or 9 external cameras, video is a huge, think about how big your video files are versus your text files. So the computers are having to process all that video. And it's processing the person that's standing in the crosswalk. It's processing that. It's processing trash cans, different things like that. And what's called latency, or the time it takes for the computer to react, was not there. And it's only recently gotten so the computers are fast enough to process all that information. So and the Waymo, that's all this extra stuff they put around. They use LiDAR and radar and everything else. Well, the Teslas used to have radar on them. They've never had LiDAR. And LiDAR is a laser type 1, and it has the same problems we have with seeing. So one thing I'll point out is if you take your iPhone out on a dark evening and you look in the lens of your iPhone, it sees more things in the dark than you see. It does an incredible job of seeing what's there. I know that, for instance, if I'm watching the 24-hour of Le Mans, well, and it's getting dusk and you see these cars with their headlights on, and you're going, why do they have their headlights on when in the picture it looks like it's still daylight? So your cameras pick up more light sensitivity than we can, so much so that you've seen nighttime shots without infrared that are very good. So these 8 cameras, we'll call it 8 or 9 depending on the car, are are constantly viewing, and they're independent. So the computer is looking at all this. And let's think about this one little camera right here that's on the side. Well, we'll think about it on the other side. You're going along and there's all these videos of people because it's really easy to record your video in the car and save it. And there's incidents where people are in full self-driving and the car swerves to the left and then swerves back and they're like, what the heck? And when they go back and look at the video, they see that someone almost sideswiped the car. And the whole time that happens is this car is calculating if there's a car next to it, how far over it can go and everything like that. So the best part is instead of two eyes, you have 8 cameras and they independently work and are constantly getting that information. And the computer has done such a good job of that. So much so that the cyber cabs, they have rolled it out. They first rolled it out in Austin, and it was Tesla's autonomous self-driving, very similar to the Waymo. They had to have safety drivers in there in the beginning, but now they've gotten rid of that. They rolled it out in Dallas and in Houston. They also have it in San Francisco down to Palo Alto, and they have to in California still. They're using a safety driver, but they'll be getting rid of those very soon because there's been 0 incidents with the exception of little bumper things. In fact, the only incidents that are reportable is that they've been hit by other cars stuck in traffic and somebody runs into them. So when you get to the point where Waymo, so this car will be able to be produced by Tesla for 1/10 of the price of what Waymo has to produce a car for with all this other stuff. Because these cameras in here are on the order of about $20 a camera, and every car that comes off the line with Tesla has the cameras in it. They built it in. You pay a monthly fee of $99 if you want to have full self-driving. The current statistics are that it is 8 times safer using full self-driving than a regular person driving a car. So if everybody was using it, there would be 8 times less accidents. And that's an amazing stat. And that's based on millions of miles. And it's not Tesla's statistics. That's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration statistics. So for the price of 8 Starbucks over a month, you can have that. And as our site gets worse and as our reaction time goes down, if you need to own a car, that's the way to do it. But here's the breakthrough. This car like this Tesla Cybercab, it's just starting production right now. It has 2 seats in it, no steering wheel, no brakes, because it's just made to be 2 passengers. There's a huge storage space in the back. Now, this car, it looks like it will be operating for around $1 a mile. So now, depending on where you live, your trip to the airport is going to be 1/3 to 1/4 of what it would be with Uber. And this car you'll summon it, it'll come, you'll get in, and you have a Tesla app, you can have your music choice, your temperature choice, you put in where you want to go, and it will do it autonomously. You don't have to worry about not a driver not understanding English or anything else, and it will work. Now, at that price, it gets to be where it's cheaper than owning a car. That's the big change here. Now, these will also be available for people to buy. I've contemplated it, not for my own use, but to have a car that can go out and make me money. My car, in fact, will be able to do it, but my car is special. I'm not going to let anybody else get in my car unless it's me driving or me activating it. So the idea is that the cost will be much lower because it's electric, you're not having to pay gas, and it doesn't have a driver in there. And the car can be produced. This car, realistically, it will be produced for about $25,000 all in for everything it has. Now, if you own it, it goes on the Tesla network, and your car can be parked in your driveway, and you make it available. And if you're not using your car, it can go out and it can take people to the airport, do things like that, and return to you. Tesla will have separate charging stations for these because they'll charge magnetically, just like your iPhones do. And they have a robotic cleaner, so it cleans it out. Everything's done. Boom. There is a camera in the cabin, and the camera in the cabin can show if people are doing, if they leave a bunch of junk behind or things like that. So, and also if they're destroying the car or doing something like that. But they will not have the option of driving it. And I have to tell you, I have driven over 100,000 miles with some form of self-driving since the very first one I got in the October of 2015 is when they put in autopilot on my first Tesla, and it was scary. But right now I can go, well, for instance, I drove home from Death Valley. I was down there for the photo club. I put in home, and it drove me, and I put in a waypoint along the way was a charging station at Mammoth Lakes, because I know there's a restaurant next to it that has good breakfast. So it pulled me into the charging station. It backed into the stall. I had to, like a caveman, get out and plug it in. And then I went and had breakfast. I came out, my car was ready, and it took me all the way to my house with me not intervening ever, not once in those, 400 miles or whatever it was. So it's the future, but also I'm giving a presentation out here to our low vision group. They asked about it because there's people here that still have their license, but they're a little borderline on driving at night and things like that. So they would look at owning a Tesla that has full self-driving, or I really think the big thing is once these proliferate and there's enough of them around, you're gonna ask for one of these, and it'll be at your house within 10 minutes, and it'll take you to the airport or take whatever. And the impact on society is there'll be less cars on the highway because this car is getting full utilization rather than our cars that sit and only have 2 to 3% utilization. They're sitting for 98% of the time. And this eliminates parking situations too, because when this car drops you off at a restaurant or at a business office and goes off and picks up other people, it's not having to park. It just goes away and does its thing. So this is a sea change in time. And our demographic at MacNexus, I mean, we're all getting older and we're not getting better reaction times, and we're not seeing any better than we ever did. So that's what's coming. And I recommend you you experience it. And you can do it in the Sacramento area with Waymo now. And I would say that within a year, you're going to see proliferation of it here. I mean, they could build it up pretty quick. Once they get full approval in California, it won't take long because Tesla produces, they can produce, oh boy, well, it'll be the end of the year, they'll be in full production. But you're going to see these where these are going to be as prolific as Uber. Unfortunately, it's going to lessen what Uber drivers, and that's going to be less of an issue. So that's a big thing. And believe it or not, a lot of this is brought on by AI, because how the computers were trained for this is they took, because in a typical car, there's 3 inputs. There's steering, both left and right. There's the accelerator pedal, either on or off in different gradients, or the brake pedal. So what they analyzed was, well, if somebody is approaching an intersection and there's a red octagonal sign that says stop on it. What did 99.9% of the drivers do at that point? They took their foot off the accelerator and they put it on the brake pedal. And then what happens after that? They looked for cars, boom, then they used the accelerator. And so AI goes through and does that. And the biggest thing is, like when I'm driving and self-driving, if I have a disengagement, I can report why the disengagement happened. And it's gotten now where it's only like it's at by choice. If I pick a different parking spot or something like that. And it's just absolutely amazing. It's so much so that I don't think I've told the story here, but I have a friend, Ken Henry. He lives in Tucson. We do photographs together. He flew in for Christmas to go to his daughter's at Rancho Murrieta. So I had just gotten back from my round the world trip, and I had the new version of self-driving. And I put in so Grok does not control my car yet, but there is Grok in the car, and it will control my navigation. So I, with Grok, just by tapping a button to talk to it, I said, take me to Sacramento International Airport, Southwest Airlines Terminal, arrival door number 4. Now, I specifically didn't say Terminal 2 because I wanted to see if it would search, and because the map says Terminal 2, but I said Southwest Airlines because that's where I knew he was flying into. So it went and it said, it repeated it back, but I also picked, because I always pick people up, when you go to the Terminal B, you always want to pick people up on the far side because it's not as crowded. So it found door number 4 and it started directing me towards it. Well, as I'm getting off the freeway, Ken's bags were not ready yet, or the bag he flew with was not ready. So as I'm exiting the freeway at the airport, I said to Grok, I said, please take me to the cell phone waiting lot first. And so within that 8th mile, it had already redirected me and took me into the cell phone waiting lot. It went down a few aisles and then it stopped. And I go, oh my gosh, am I going to have to park it? Well, no, it actually was starting and it parked itself. And once it parked itself, I'm like, man. So now Ken called me. He said it's got its bag. So I pushed go ahead and it continued my route. But the weirdest thing is, if you know where the AM PM is, there's a traffic circle. Well, normally I would have gone straight through that traffic circle and gotten on Airport Boulevard and gone to the terminal. Well, it's telling me to go left through there and go up over Airport Boulevard. So I almost disengaged, but I go, you know what? I'm going to trust this. Okay. So it took me towards the old cell phone waiting lot, through another traffic circle, and then there's a frontage road there to the cargo area. And it had me turn right there. So I almost disengaged again, but I said, you know what? Ken has full self-driving in his car. He'll understand if I'm 5 minutes late. So I went down that road all the way along, and it gets me down towards the terminal. And there was actually a little construction going on. It handled that fine, and it went around. And what it actually did is it stops me, and I am perpendicular, my nose in, to this loop of traffic of the people going from the original doors 1 and 2, where you do a 180 around Terminal B to go to 3 and 4. Well, what happened is it's got me right there. It feeds me into that traffic, and it goes along, and it goes past the crosswalk and stops at the curb right in front of door number 4. It was magic. And then I already had Rancho Murrieta in the thing, so I just let it go, and I never had to touch anything. And that's the combination of AI with the self-driving. And it's amazing. And yeah, it still makes a few mistakes, but I have in the last 6 months have not had a critical mistake. I've only seen navigation mistakes, and it usually can correct those on its own. So Any self-driving future questions and how good AI was that? Please, this is the time to ask. And I probably lost a whole bunch and got bored, but I'll tell you, if you get a chance, you will be blown away by self-driving. There's lots of great videos out there about people's first time with it.
Well, we can go to chat.
It's just amazing. So Randy, you've got a question. Go for it. In
Yes,
fact, I
thanks.
almost came to grab you to go to see if you wanted to go see the big boy train, and I was going to take you for self-driving, but I left later than I thought. So
No problem. Thank you for thinking. Okay, not a serious question, but because you illustrate, I would see how I could use that and have no problem, no fear, no anxiety, because I've never done that before with a small trip on flat surfaces. But let's say you're in an area, maybe with windy roads. Like when we went over to see the Charles Schultz Museum, we went over one way on our direction navigation and came back through a really windy way. And I'm just wondering, can you dictate your route, like flat, level,
yeah,
preferred?
no, it's so great question. But first of all, I dismiss the fact that you would not be anxious when you first tried it.
Well, anxiety about
Yeah, anxious is anxiety. So
okay.
it happens, and I was too, and I've become more and more. But remember, I started it when it was really it did weird things. But we have we have our we have people out here.
I see a name and call.
We have people out here that we're taking people out and experiencing it, and they're just blown away. And it's yeah, it takes some anxiety as if you're sitting in the driver's seat because you're used to being in control. But it's more like if you're in the passenger seat, you don't realize when somebody's thinking about braking or things like that. But there are 5 levels of settings. So it goes from the levels of setting would be the aggressiveness of how it performs. So in the case of the 5 settings that you can set it at, the first one is sloth. So very slow, very methodical. It will not exceed the speed limit, etc. And sloth is good, and you can do that. Then there is chill, and then there's standard. Then there's hurry, and the last one is Mad Max. Now, I don't use Mad Max because it goes more over the speed limit than I like, and it's very aggressive about lane changes. They're safe, but it's more aggressive than I would want. So I keep mine on hurry most of the time. If there's a cop around or if I know I want to slow down a bit, I just move the scroll wheel down to standard or even chill, and it just goes down. But your mention about it's interesting because initially windy roads were a big deal. We have a road out here, 193, that has pretty tight. Or I'll give you another example. Those of you, Randy, you're familiar with it. I used to always test my self-driving, getting off Highway 80, going towards Lincoln on 65, that big 270-degree turn. And it handles it perfectly, along with, now, depending on if I'm in Mad Max mode or hurry mode or chill mode, when it decides to merge over to get in there. And believe me, it merges perfectly. And you can do it with the aggressiveness you want. And if you're on the lower modes, it'll get you in that easier. Again, I love to drive. I consider myself a good driver. Of course, the irony is 80% of the people think they're the top drivers in the world. Well, but anyway, but it's caught things and helped me. And so the windy roads are great. And originally it used to take it and made sure the car was exactly between, the computer says, I got to be between the fog line and the yellow line exactly. Well, we don't drive that way. We cut the corners a little bit and you ease in because it makes it easier and there's less lean and everything. And it's learned to do that. It's learned that when it's going next to a semi, it will give a little more room and cut over to the left a little because humans do that. It used to be called truck lust, we called it, where it felt like it got closer to the truck when it really didn't. Is you're used to getting away from the truck when you go past. So it's brought all that in because that's the way humans drive. Now, many people have said online it's the spouse effect. It used to be that when somebody would get a new version of full self-driving, they would go driving with their spouse, and finally the spouse would say, or their partner, whatever, would say, wow, no, why don't you drive instead? And now there's many reports in a household where the passenger will say, can you please engage self-driving? Because even though the person's a good driver and they're great with it, it's so much better. It's gotten to that point. And that point only happened last December, and it's refining ever since. So the windy roads are great. It does it more aggressively than you can expect. But let's think of some edge case scenarios. You approach a four-way stop sign. So we know the rules of the road, that if you're there at the same time as somebody else, the person on the right goes first, etc. And it respects those things, but it would sit there forever if the person on the right that had the right of way didn't go. But now it gives it some time, and believe it or not, it responds to the other person's hand signals. If they wave you, it will then go. It responds to a guy holding up a sign. I was going along when on the way home from Death Valley, but I went to another spot in Death Valley. I went. They were doing road work, 2-lane road, and they were just doing it where they just had guys with slow and stop signs just in it. And it was very active because they were just putting the sealant on the bad spots of the road. And it handled that fine. It stopped, did what it did. When you pull up to a drive-through, it will stop at the window. I mean, just stuff like that is just
We
amazing.
got all this carried away in
So,
Texas.
and the whole thing is
iOS.
that if it doesn't get a response, it will go ahead and do it. So good points. Kathy, go right ahead. You're muted.
Thank you. Both my daughter and I feel that it doesn't know when it's raining. It seems to go too fast for my comfort in the rain. The Tesla on full self-driving supervised.
And what level do you have yours on?
I keep it on. I thought I only had 3 levels, like
Well,
chill.
you might, because if you have 3 levels, it means you have hardware 3.
Okay. And I pay the $99 a month.
Okay. So they're coming out with a version of 14 for it called 14 Lite that will be available, they think, sometime in June, late June, and you'll have 3 level or 5 levels then.
Oh,
But
the
what
3
I
is fine. I go the middle, like standard or whatever.
Yeah, so in a case like that, I would go down to the chill or sloth or whatever yours is called.
But does it know it's raining? Because it just follows
It
cars
does,
really
because
closely on the
actually
freeway.
the cameras are what does your wipers. So it knows it's raining, but I'll point out something, and this was very instructive to me because I drive in the snow a lot, and it's fantastic in the snow, and it does a great job. And in fact, it has better traction than I expect. So there was a place, this guy, it's called Out of Spec Tests or whatever. This guy has a YouTube channel. He started out just doing Teslas, then all electrics. Now he does all cars. He's wonderful. He's not a Tesla fanboy. He puts them on the carpet when they want, but he took and they moved from Colorado, so he definitely knows snow driving in the mountains of Colorado. They moved to Ohio, and then when we had this big freeze this winter, they went out. They bought a facility that has a test track. It's an old race. It was a car testing place, and so they went out with self-driving and was trying to test it, trying to overdo it, hitting the accelerator and things like that. And he was blown away how much traction it has. And it senses the amount of wheel spin and what it can do. So I know your anxiety you're talking about, and I've had that too, where I turn it down because it's being more aggressive than I want. But it is monitoring the situation so much so that now there's a new software update that it even can sense how much water's on the windshield by the resistance of the wiper, which is so weird. But anyway, it's not doing what it doesn't think it can do, but I agree with you, and they need to be able to tone that down a little bit.
So I need to do it manually. Okay.
And I think
thank
on
you.
yours, you can take your stock or your thumb wheel, and
Yeah.
you can slow your speed down.
Oh, I've
On the newer
run into
version,
that.
on
Okay.
my version, I can't. I can only change it with that. So
Okay. Thank
yeah.
you.
But it's amazing. I did speak with because the other thing I used to do, because of the regeneration and the braking, I was concerned in the snow and ice of it breaking loose. And so I would get a specific setting that turned down the regen. We can't adjust anymore. But I actually talked, I was at Tesla at a tour, and I talked to a guy who is an engineer that does the winter testing. He says, no, trust the car. And that's what really proved with this one out of spec video, did a great job with it. So Pete McDonough, go for it.
Ken, this is Bev. I don't have the full self-driving, but I'm wondering, Kathy, what I heard you say the car was too close, and there's the manual adjustment on the assisted driving where you can increase the number of car lengths between. I don't know if that would help. I mean, that's a manual.
It's not on the full self-driving, right,
Full
Ken?
self-driving, it doesn't. That's essentially what
You
happens with
can't
the
use that
different levels.
option. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I wish it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that in later versions we're going to be able to do the speed itself a little off. I mean, their whole thing is this is designed for the autonomous cars, and then they're going to backtrack a little bit for those of us that are still in drivered cars using it. But it's based on rolling out this other thing. And then once they've rolled out the full unsupervised version, then they're going to be able to tweak it a bit. So, Pete McDonough, you had your hand up.
Yes. Does it do what most people don't do in driving in this area? Does it signal lane changes before it changes lane?
Absolutely. But in fact, even if you're not using full self-driving, the nice thing is you can use your blinker, and as you change lanes, if you use your blinker, but you use your blinker to change lanes, it will automatically turn the blinker off for you. But here's an interesting part about that, because we're getting more and more traffic circles. And I never thought about using my blinker in traffic circles, but my car uses the blinker in the traffic circles. And then when I did my round the world trip, both in Europe and especially in Australia and New Zealand, everybody uses blinker in traffic circles. And let me explain why. So we'll just think about a four-way traffic circle where it's a four-way intersection. So let's say you enter and you're going straight in that intersection. In other words, you're not turning right. You're going to go halfway through the loop and exit straight. Well, if there's a person that's waiting to come in from the right, it doesn't know if you're going to turn right or you're going straight to the other one. And let's say there's also somebody coming the opposite way in the traffic circle where you're already in the traffic circle, so you have the right of way, but they're waiting. As I go past the first right-hand 90-degree turn, my blinker's not on because I'm not turning there. But in fact, if I'm going straight, as I pass that, my blinker goes on, informing the person waiting to get in the traffic circle from straight ahead knows that oh, he's going that way, and it will take me that way. So that's how we should all do blinkers in traffic circles. And it was very prevalent in Europe and there, and the car does it that way, and it does it exactly. It's amazing. So, but it's still not going to take people. Self-driving always uses its blinker. In fact, sometimes, like if you're doing where you have two lanes that go right on an off-ramp or something, it'll turn its blinker on to get to that off-ramp, which you seem as weird because then you're going to scare people. You're going in to the next lane to the right, but you're not. But that's the appropriate thing. So, Harmon, go for it.
Okay, I just want to clarify, Ken. You would be comfortable sitting in the passenger seat, having this self-driving vehicle take you from Carmel to Morro Bay.
Absolutely.
You-
Now
you
let me
wouldn't fall
preface
off
that.
into the Pacific Ocean.
Okay, so if you so when I first got in a Waymo, I was a little bit trepidatious. And that it just because there was no driver. And I have to tell you now that because I have, with the new version of this, and then the Waymo was fine, and it was more aggressive than I thought, because when self-driving first came out, it was way too timid. In fact, it didn't deal with situations very well. It has gotten more aggressive. But I mean, when I look at stats completely, when it tells me that it's 8 times safer than having a human driver, hey, come on. I mean, it is. I do not mind a bit, but that's only changed since, well, it happened like in November or something, but I was on my trip since I got the newest version of full self-driving back December 20th. And no, I have no trepidation at all. So much so that I get pretty complacent with it now, which I think is a thing. But I've seen the bad parts of self-driving enough that I trust but verify. So I'm there with my car doing it. But no, I would have no problem in a robo-taxi, because the only incidents it has, the highest speed incident that any robo-taxi has had, or a cybercab, is at 8 miles an hour. And there were no injuries. And the other thing is, it avoids other people. I'm more worried about other drivers out there, and it has 8 cameras looking in different directions. I mean, there's incidences where somebody's coming up to rear end a Tesla, and it looks to go next to the car in front and getting out of the way and things like that. It works. It happens. So if you look at the statistics, it's there. And its fail-safe is, if something's weird, put on the blinker, put on the flashers, pull over to the side of the road. That's its default. So, and that's, I mean, and that, God, I can't believe, I don't know when that's happened in a long time. So yes, I would, in a heartbeat. And Waymo's had no serious accidents, and Cybercab has had no airbag deployments or anything like that. I mean, and there are so far, full self-driving is just surpassed 10 billion miles. It's amazing. So, and they're gathering like something like, I think it's 12 million miles a day of information. So, and the more information, the better. So, Yeah, but no, I wouldn't. I would be more concerned in a Waymo than in a Tesla because of situations that come up. And I've seen how it's handled road work, temporary detours, traffic cones, things like that, where the Waymo has a little bit more of a challenge with it because it depends more on this hyper mapping it does. All right, Pete, you had another question? And
Is,
did that answer it, Armin?
Well,
I know you don't believe it.
I don't think I could sit there looking over my right shoulder down the cliff to the uh, water below and not have control over the vehicle. I just don't think I could do it. But that's just uh,
And and
vertigo, whatever else. But it's just amazing to me that somebody could feel comfortable in that situation.
if this was a year ago, I would tell you no, I wouldn't do it. But I'm experiencing the same thing that it's doing. And well, I mean, my God, there's going from, I went up to Whitney Portal and came down from there and things. So yeah. And actually, it's interesting because I see Keith McMahon's on here. He a long time ago told me about this grade off of Highway 80. That's I forget what it is, and there's no center line in it. In fact, there's no lines on the side, and that's always I've gone back and tested that, and it self-driving wouldn't do it in the beginning, and it handles it flawlessly now. In fact, it's only recently had it where if there's a little overgrowth from a bush or something on the side of the road, it will even go around those. So it does not need lines in the road or anything like that. It's reading what's going on. And it parks in parking spots. So
Up
Pete
near
McDonough,
Bowman.
I'm sorry.
It's up near Bowman.
Yeah, it's something great. I forget what it is, but Keith had told me about it a long time ago because he's a car guy. So Pete McDonough, did you have another question or comment?
I have a comment on the previous, which I think is very interesting. I drove to Roseville DMV to figure out where do I go. I should have asked when I was inside to take the test. So I figured it might be in the back. So I drove around in the back and I saw as I looped around to like a 270, I could see there was like a pull-in section for the testing and then the doors there for them to come out. But here's the interesting thing I thought. Off to the right, I saw some painted white lines. So I drove over there, and what it was, it looked like it had white lines for a car to back into and then prove to the tester that you could back up between those white lines. At the end of the white lines, of course, you'd have to drive out again and then drive into the right. They had a roundabout painted there.
That's actually for the motorcycle test.
Oh, well, I passed it on my own.
Yeah. Well, the backing up may be, but the little loop around and stuff is what the motorcycles
I
have to
didn't know that. Well, my car did it.
do. Well, good job. And good luck on the 14th. Keith McMahon, go for it.
So to answer your question, this road that you were talking about is called the Old Norton Grade.
Right, that's it.
Right next to Highway 80, and you get to it from Rollins Lake.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I have another question.
And 2 years ago, self-driving didn't do it. I actually did it when not this time when the train came through, but 2 years ago when the train came through, and it handled it fine then, but with the exception of one little turn. And then I did it because traffic was backed up on 80 is why I took it. Because the big boy train. But anyway, I've taken it since then and handles it perfectly. That's one though where a bush has interacted with a bush a little bit that was over on the road, and now I haven't done it since then. But the update on the software will avoid things like that.
Well, the question I wanted to ask you, you talked about driving a Tesla self-driving in snow conditions. And does it matter whether the car is equipped with snow tires or not? Does it know that? Because if you're driving in snow a lot, I think having snow tires on the car and all four wheels is a very good thing to do. So how does that impact self-driving in a Tesla?
So first off, not the Cybercab, but most Teslas are all-wheel drive. I, in fact, run full snow tires in the winter because they make a huge difference. Not mud. I don't do all seasons. I run real snows, and I just recently took them off and put the new ones on, or
Good.
my other ones. But what it doesn't, Keith, what it does is I can tell it the size of the tire, but what it's using is it's every millisecond it's testing the traction itself. It knows, first of all, the resistance. So it can, well, first of all, it can consult the weather stations, but it will use the cameras to determine if the road has got snow in it. It will it'll use the external thermometer and use all of those variables. But what it really does is it can sense as you go into a turn any type of loss of traction or anything like that. And it's monitoring that every second. So much so that I've always, when it's winter, you go in the parking lot of a ski resort with a bunch of snow on it. You used to be able to just go do donuts and everything. First of all, I'm blown away with how much traction it really has because it has a traction control and it will send power to the wheel that is able to get the most traction. But it almost isn't fun. You can put it in what's called slip mode where you can slide it around, but you can't go do the donuts because it corrects so quickly. And that's what was amazing with this guy with the whole self-driving thing. I will try before I close chat out today. I'll try get that link in there from out of spec. And no, it doesn't quote know the tire, but it uses other mechanics. There's load on the motor, and it's amazing because the car's controlled by this big computer. It can derive so much information. Like I said, their most recent thing is because it doesn't use the typical sensor for when there's rain on your windshield. It uses the cameras, and what happens is they've been going real faster than they need. So what they're doing now is they can get information from the wiper motor as to the resistance of the wiper going across the glass to determine if it needs to go faster or slower by how much. If it's very slick, it means there's a lot of water. So it's kind of interesting. All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great questions. And we're going to dig into the Apple infrastructure here. So I'm going to go to Safari and we can get rid of the Cybercab. So by the way, Robotaxi is the generic name. So you could have a Tesla Model Y that they're using on the Robotaxi network, Robot Taxi. The Cybercab itself is this particular car with no wheel and everything else. In Austin and Dallas, these are just starting to come out now from the Austin factory, but they do have Model Ys that are, quote, robo-taxis, which means there's no driver. You get in one of the other 3 seats or 4 seats in the car, and it still has a steering wheel and brake, but it's not being used. It is a robo-taxi. The Cybercab itself is what this is named. And by the way, these body panels are a very sophisticated plastic material. So this car never has to go through paint, and every body panel. The amazing part about this is if a body panel, well, plastic panel is less likely to get damaged, but if it does, every panel is made exactly the same color as the other panels. So in fact, they just ship a panel and bolt it on, and that's it. So anyway, let me go to, so I needed to get a presentation together I want to talk about the Apple ecosystem. So I told it to build me a slideshow, but I wanted it to compare Apple products. because I think that, we're all using Apple products, but we really don't, there's people are buying stuff and they don't know where to go. So I said, let's differentiate the iPad overview. There's 4 models from budget to pro, price versus power. When we get to displays, there's display size, but there's also the fineness of the display. Let me do this a little larger. Okay. So, and then the other thing when you go to choose an iPad is your storage. How much stuff do you keep on it? And I recommend you look at an existing iPad and go into iPad storage and have it tell you how much room you're using. And the newer ones, the prices have stayed about the same, but what they do is they've increased the amount of storage space in it. So in the iPads, there are 4 models. I'm going to start from the bottom and go up. Now, I am a huge fan of the iPad mini. I use the iPad mini. I'm very lucky in that my long distance vision is terrible, but my up close vision without glasses is fine. I can read a book or read an iPad at less than arm length distance or at arm length distance and read it fine. So the mini for me works very well. Now, I should say, when we're talking about all these devices, if you're getting ready to buy, the thing to do is go to either the Apple Store or Costco or Best Buy, but I recommend the Apple Store. But the thing is, when you go look at it, remember, you're in this really big building, and then everything's going to look small. So remember that the iPad mini is going to look really small in there, and even the big iPad Pro in a 13 is not going to look that big when you're in this big building. So take that into account. So in iPads, here are some of the considerations. I love the iPad mini. It's very portable. And when you look at iPads, this is the display size, and that's the diagonal measurement, not of the device, but corner to corner on the amount of screen that there's in the display. Now, that being said, the 8.3-inch iPad mini, when you look at a screen like this or a screen like this, versus the 13-inch, exactly the same amount of information is displayed on the screen. So obviously, it will be smaller on an 8.3 versus a 13-inch. Again, remember, this is a diagonal measurement. So the amount of square inches is probably almost double on that. Now, on the iPhone and on the iPad, you can zoom things in, but the idea is look at from what it is to begin with. So I highly recommend you go in and you touch and feel, because an iPad is an instrument that can be on a desk. You can use a keyboard if you want, or it can be on the couch, or it travels with you. I have an original iPad Pro 11-inch that now will not do the new software, but I really use that thing so little, I just don't think I'm going to replace it, because I use the iPad mini for everything. So we're up to the 7th generation of the iPad mini, and it's fantastic. Oh, when we're talking about iPads, I highly recommend 2 things. Just like with the iPhone, I recommend a tempered glass screen protector. My favorite company, and you get it from Amazon, is Spigen, Spigen. And generally speaking, I tell you to get a 2-pack, because a 2-pack of screen protectors, my philosophy is, if you just buy one, you're going to mess it up putting it on. If you buy 2, you'll be very successful putting the first one on, and then you have the other one as a backup. And what it is, it's a sacrificial. Do not get a plastic one. It has to be tempered glass. And it becomes the sacrifice so you don't have an expensive screen repair. Okay. And then a a folding folio case, I highly recommend. And you get these from Amazon. I can get a case for a regular iPad or an iPad mini without a keyboard. It's $20 on Amazon. I can get two screen protectors for a little over $20. Don't buy it at the store there. And then most of the time now for the screen protectors, they come with a plastic jig that you actually put over it, and then it makes it so you can flawlessly put it on the device. So I wholly recommend that, because even if you have Apple Care, there's, depending on the level of Apple Care, it's expensive to replace the screen. Now, most iPads, so the Apple iPad has a magnetic part on it, all of these iPads, and you can then hook up a keyboard if you want. My story when I first got the original iPad, which was a 9.2 inch, I think it was, the original iPad, when I first got it, I couldn't decide between three different keyboards. So I got the device in, I worked with it, and it turns out I didn't need nor want a keyboard, because the keyboard that comes up on the full-size iPad is almost like a full-size keyboard, and you can type with it. But also, remember, we have dictation, which works very well on those. Now, that being said, if you're using it in place of a laptop and you're going to be doing a lot of spreadsheet or a lot of text and everything, a keyboard is vital. If you only use it occasionally, if you have a wireless keyboard for your laptop or your iMac, it can be used on the iPad, but you got to sync them back and forth. But I wholly recommend that you really look into that and make some thoughts. And you want one that does not have to be charged on its own. You want one that uses the iPad's battery to run it, because inevitably your keyboard will never have a charge when you need it. And that's just the way it goes. So they hook to the, it's usually a little bit bulkier case. The keyboard is integrated into a case for it. And, think about that. And you could try it first and see if you really need it if you're not using an iPad. If you're a current iPad user, you'll be able to make that decision pretty easy. And then they do have them now where it's just like a laptop, where it's a keyboard and a trackpad, so you're not having to touch the screen and do that. So that's the recommendations. As you go up from the 11th generation iPad, and the retail is $349, you can find this in many locations for $299. Amazon, Best Buy, Costco, many times this will be $299. Okay, so think about that. It has the A16 chip, which is a previous iPhone chip, so it does AI. So the same here with the A17 that's in the iPad mini. The iPad Air and the iPad Pro use the 4th generation M and the 5th generation M chip. So they're very fast, and they completely support Apple Intelligence, which again will be a factor in the fall. Most of these have been refreshed recently, except for the iPad mini. It was over a year ago, and there are rumors of one coming on that. But as you go up in processing power, you're getting higher and higher prices. And what happens here is you go from a liquid retina is the typical display. It's a very good display, but the best display is an OLED. The blacks are black, it punches out, and it has much, much better clarity and brightness. So that's what you get when you upgrade to the Pro. Between the M4 and the M5, yeah, it's an increase, but most people wouldn't really notice that. But it's thinner. It does use Thunderbolt. Oh, by the way, all of the iPads now use the USB-C connector, which is no longer the Lightning. And they use, you can have Touch ID on them on the on and off switch. And they have a front-facing camera also on most of these, so you can do that. And again, look at Amazon, look for other places on pricing. Apple stays with their retail pricing, but the retailers can discount them. So again, the sizing, you can only get the 13s in the Pro and the Air. The regular iPad is just around 11 inches, and you have 11 inches there, and then the iPad mini is 8.3. So I am open to any iPad. Oh, by the way, on the iPad, there's two versions you can get. You can get a Wi-Fi only, which is how they typically are. But for $100 and something, depending on the model, you can also get a cellular version. And those are usually special order. Or your cell phone carrier will make you some deals on the cellular version because they'll charge you between $10 and $20 a month to have that cellular service active. Now, there's a few of you, and I'm looking at Keith and some others that like to use the iPad for their GPS when they're traveling. So even if you don't get the cellular service or pay for the cellular service, if you want to use the iPad as a GPS device for maps, etc., you have to get the cellular version. And again, you can get the cellular version, but you don't have to have a service. But you can check with your current cellular carrier, and they might make you a deal on a cellular version of one of these iPads if you agree to have a 2-year, if you go 2 years worth of service. So look into that. But the other thing is, if you get just the Wi-Fi version and your carrier allows it, you'll be able to implicitly tie it and tether it or link it with your iPhone and use that to connect to your internet. So those are your choices. Wi-Fi only, Wi-Fi and cellular, then whether you want to have a plan on it or not, because either the cellular or the Wi-Fi only, you can still link it and use your phone's cellular service for it. And depending on your carrier, you need to check that. Bev, go ahead. You're muted.
Yeah. On using, I currently don't have the cellular on my iPad, and I am toying with getting the iPad mini for travel. But one of the things I've been thinking about is with the cell phone, if you add cellular on, say, the iPad, can you have either a whole separate number, or
Yeah,
can
yes,
it
but it
ring to
doesn't.
the same number?
It reflects on your number just like your watch does. But remember, you're not going to make phone calls on an iPad
Okay, why not?
because you're not going to hold it up to your, and it doesn't work like that. Although,
With hearing aids, would it Bluetooth?
yes, it'll work, but if you have an iPhone there, why would you use the iPad?
It's for the vet, and there may be a smarter solution. I still have a landline, and I have kept it because every once in a while it's convenient to have two phone
Okay.
numbers.
Well,
And I was
no.
thinking, well,
So
if I got rid of,
an iPad, as the device is, your carrier gives it a phone number, but it is not active as a phone. It's
oh,
just not part of it. You
okay, so
might be able to, but what you can do, let's say your phone is in the other room and you get a phone call, you can have it ring from your phone on your iPad and completely do that conversation.
and I've done that with my watch, similar.
Right.
Yeah.
And the watch has cellular and it can make calls on its own, but
Oh,
it actually mimics your number. So if you make a phone call from your watch, it will display that it's your regular home number,
yeah, it's
or not
probably
home number, your regular number. But yeah, I mean, you should just get a get a Google Voice number and you can always use that. Then you're not paying for a damn landline. So anyway, it is not designed to make calls, even though
okay.
it's designed for data only.
So if you're using the Google voice number, you'd be using your phone.
You can use your phone, your laptop, whatever you want for a Google Voice number. It's simply an internet phone.
And you can talk with the laptop, you can talk and do.
You can do whatever you want.
Oh, okay. So that'd actually be more versatile. Yeah, there's just been a few times, especially when you're calling tech support, or you got a couple things going on. And I don't need my landline now. I used to need it for my alarm system, but now it does it differently. Okay.
Yeah, another option to a home landline that makes it less expensive is to get UMA, OOMA, and you only pay the taxes. You pay for the device, it's like $100, and then you can hook it into your phone line and it does it. And also you can have that excuse me, you can use that number to make calls and you could maintain your phone and you could actually port your old home phone number over to Google Voice. But anyway,
Okay, so that's
we're,
good. So I
we're
could
doing
put,
hardware now. So
yeah.
but a good question, but I think it's, and the other thing too is I see people use their iPad to take photos all the time. Well, it's nice because it's bigger, but the thing is, your iPad's camera is not near as capable as the camera that's in even the least expensive iPhone. Now, the iPad Pro might have a camera that's a little bit better for it, but in fact, the iPhone cameras are usually the best. And we're going to talk about iPhones at the very end. So that being said, again, tempered glass screen protector and a case. And the case you can get from anybody. I prefer really thin ones. And then if I had a keyboard case, I would get a separate one for that because they're usually bigger and bulkier and it makes it less portable. But definitely get the tempered glass screen protector. So any other iPad questions before we move? Okay. And you guys, I'm not able to monitor chat. So, and I'm going to put this thing in, actually, why don't I do it right now? Let me put this in the chat window so that anybody can access all this information. So if I go here, create a share link, copy to clipboard. So that's the Grok one right there. Oh, and by the way, this is the same exact thing in the Google. So I'm going to put both of them in here, the Google search. So hang on. So the two links there are doing it with Google and that they're going to be in chat. So that'll end up going in the PDF that gets sent out. Okay, so back to here. So on the going to, and here was so we went through the iPad. So here we go to the MacBook laptop comparisons. Thin and light versus powerful M5 chips. We basically have three, oh wait, is it in here? Where's the Neo? Oh, well, let's see if Google did it better. Aha. So the Gemini did better here. Brand new laptop out from Apple called the Neo. It will do AI. It is not an M series, which is Apple Silicon, a more powerful chip. It's an A19, which is actually the same thing in your iPhone. Very powerful chip, though. I mean, it's amazing. But the thing here is it's $599, and this is a fully functioning laptop. It is limited on the amount of ports it has on it for USB-C or for Lightning and stuff like that. But it is, and when you think about an iPad with a keyboard, this may be cheaper than an iPad with a keyboard. So it's a consideration. Then for the longest time, we've had MacBook Airs. They come in a what? And don't they come in an 11 and a 13? Let's see here. 13 and a 15. So they and they're virtually the same screen, and they're lighter and thinner, and they're an M5 chip, which is incredibly powerful. And then the MacBook Pro, and the MacBook Pro comes in 14s and 16s. And the newest one, the M5, it's the Pro chip in the 16, but in fact, their specs are pretty close on these all the way through. Now, let's talk about sizing. And this is where it's important when you go into the store to look at it and pick it up and check it out, because years ago when I went to Morocco, Jordan, and Egypt, they had just right after I left, they came out with the new MacBook Pro 14s and 16s. At the time, I had a MacBook Pro 13, and I took that with me. And I had luckily I didn't buy the MacBook Pro 16 I wanted to buy. I thought that was what I needed. And it didn't come out before I left. And thank goodness, because in my travels, I figured it out that less than 20% of the safes in the hotels or on the ship could a 16-inch MacBook Pro fit in. So that creates a problem with travel. And it used to be that when we had 13s and 15 inches in MacBook Pros, the 13 wasn't as powerful, but in this case, the 14 and the 16 are the same power. So the 14 is the way to go if you need flexibility, and it's $800 less because the screen's not as much, and the chip is slightly better. There are rumors that we will be getting a touch screen MacBook Pro in the near future, a complete redesign. The 5 is a new chip, but they didn't redesign the case, and that may be coming. And this new one, this M6 with the touch screen, may in fact only be offered originally in a 16-inch. It's going to be very powerful, and it's going to be a little pricey. So laptops are great. With the MacBook Neo, you can put one external monitor on it. On the MacBook Air and above, you can put 2 external monitors on them. So you could have that as a screen and then other ones. I'm talking to you right now on a M1 14-inch MacBook Pro, and because I have a special hub, I have 2 monitors hooked up to it, and I have an external Apple keyboard, and I have an external trackball that I have on it, and I'm just sitting at a regular desk with it, and it is closed, sitting on the shelf, driving all this stuff. So any questions on laptops? Okay. The M5 was just updated again. The M6, they think fall or first part of next year. So now we'll talk about desktops. That used to be where we were. So Mac Mini, it used to be a very pedestrian type machine, wasn't very powerful and stuff. The Mac Minis, you can spec out a Mac Mini now that's pretty darn powerful. But it's just a little small, it's a little bit bigger than what a CD case would be. Then the next one up from that, the iMac, let me forget the iMac for right now, because I can see the pictures here. Let me check if this pictures are any better. Nope. So the Mini is here, and this is the Studio. The Studio is now at an M4, the M4 and the chips in this, and they're much more powerful and have more ports than this, and they're a little bit bigger. Depending on what you do, if you're doing video and things like that, the Studio would be a step up as far as processing power, but I think most people would realize the Mac Mini does pretty well. And depending on the Mac Studio will support more screens than the Mac Mini, but the Mac Mini will support 2 screens. Then the what's soon to be discontinued Mac Pro. I don't know that anybody here really needs that. And then we have the 24-inch iMac. What an incredible machine. It's amazingly lightweight. It weighs 10 pounds. The thickness of the screen is the same thickness as an iPad. The way they do that is the power supply that converts it from AC to DC plugs it. The power supply itself is in the plug rather than on the computer. An incredible computer. Very good value. And if you're using a laptop at your desk all the time, think about this, because it's a wonderful screen, 24 inches. But then there's the incessant rumor that looks like it might be coming true next year. We may get what's considered an iMac Pro. It'll probably be pretty pricey, and it will have a high-end chip, and it will have, rumors are, a 32-inch screen. Because, we used to have a 21 and a 27. Then they compromised and came with the 24. And you can zoom these screens in all you want, but it's a really good screen. It's a 4.5K, which is pretty awesome. So last thing I want to speak about is the iPhone. Now, before we go any further, this fall, the rumors are already out there that we're going to get, obviously we know we're going to get an iPhone 18. So we're probably going to get an iPhone 18, both Pro and Pro Max. Now, the difference between that is just like in the current 17s. The Pro version means it has 3 camera lenses on it, okay? One is a telephoto lens. So indications are the 18 Pro and Pro Max will do the same. The only difference between the Pro and the Pro Max is the size. 6.3-inch screen and 6.9 and $100 difference. And they're the exact same chip, exact same specs. So you also have the regular old 17, which is the same size as the 17 Pro, but it comes with 2 cameras. So the way I differentiate that for people is, if you're a photographer and you travel a lot and you want images that are much better and higher resolution, go with the Pro or the Pro Max. First of all, because you have a long telephoto lens, but second of all, it's a Pro chip, so it's higher processing, and in fact, you get a better camera. If your pictures consist of posting something on Facebook and, maybe doing from a regular printer a little thing, or just sharing photos with people, if what I call snapshots, the regular phone is fantastic. Any of the phones will do that and do a fantastic job with it. But if you're making pictures, if you're trying to do photographs, you go with the Pro, because the cameras are better. It's got higher resolution. You can blow it up if you decide to put it printed on metal and put it in your house. Now, I have my Sony camera. I have a Sony mirrorless with some lenses, and I shoot well over, I'd say 98% when I'm traveling of all my shots are done with my iPhone. I'm going to Africa in July, and it will be essential for me to have, my iPhone will be used most of the time, but for faraway shots, I'll need my big camera. And for my nighttime shots, I will need my big camera. But other than that, the iPhone is fantastic. And the telephoto lens in the iPhone zooms in pretty well. So that's what the third lens in the iPhone does really well with. So going up to the top here, the 17E is what used to be called the SE. And basically it's the no frills phone with 1 camera. And let me see if they show a difference here on there. This is a little better here. So the 17E, now your carrier is going to give you good deals on this. And remember, so the 17E just came out recently, but all the rest of the phones are refreshed last September. The indications are that some of these, like the Pros, will probably refresh in September, and they may wait till spring on these others. But I'll get it to in a second. So the 17E is a single camera, then the dual fusions here, and then when you get to the Air, you have LiDAR just like these. The LiDAR is allowing it to do a lot of different things. A very thin phone, but it only has 2 cameras in it. Or I'm sorry, it was 1 camera this year. Yeah. But and the dual cameras mean, so like for instance, on the 2 cameras, there's a 0.5, which is a wide angle lens, ultra wide angle, and then there's the 1X. That'd be equivalent to a 50 millimeter. And then when you get to the Pros, you also have a telephoto lens. But what's coming, and there are mock-ups of them already, we will get a folding phone called the iPhone Ultra, likely available in the fall. And it will probably be, well, they're trying to get people to rumor it at $2,000. I don't think it'll be that much. It will only have 2 cameras, so it's not a photographer's choice. But what it does is it will open up and be a little smaller than the Mac Mini, but it kind of makes it of a morph between an iPhone and a tablet. So closed up, it works like the current phone does, but opened up, it will be a little bit larger. Originally, we thought it was going to be the size of the Mac Mini, but it won't. Let me see if I can get a mock-up of it. Let me do this. Foldable iPhone Ultra mock-up. So this is the size they're talking about, because what happens is people get the sizes for all the phones for the camera bumps and everything, and they're made in aluminum so that the case manufacturers can get a jump on it, but it's not giving away what's in there. But this is very close to what I saw in the mock-ups. So 2 cameras with the camera bump folding, and then when this is folded up, it displays a regular screen just like this. So it's a regular phone, you unfold it, and when you flip this over on the other side, it's like this. So it has that. So I'm not necessarily a fan. I don't think it'll apply to me because I use my camera to everything I can. So your carriers always have good deals on it. We'll discuss more of that as that comes up. I'm just looking to see if there's any more of the actual mock-up. No, but I've seen some actual examples on different podcasts with the actual. Oh, here it is. This is the one that was given out, and that's how it is open. And then here's how it is closed. You can see, you can't tell what's going on. This shows, and then the rumors are that it doesn't have MagSafe, but this one would indicate that it has MagSafe. Oh no, see, that's the regular camera. That's the new 18, and it shows MagSafe. This one doesn't do MagSafe. So there's indications to keep it thin that they kept MagSafe out of it. MagSafe is the charging or the fact that you can use it for different things. All right, that's a rundown of the Apple ecosystem that we all love. And, if you have friends that are on Androids and you get those green texts, just remind them if they have a problem with their Android phone, well, where's the Android store if you have a problem? Apple does a really good job. I refer back to some of my another presentation I did before that was on Apple Care and your choices with that. So I'm going to close I'm a minute late, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And it doesn't have to be about this. It could be about anything else. Keith, that's a cool picture behind you. Very cool. And Randy, I like your horse race one. They're ready to stomp on you there. All right, Kathy, go for it, and then Keith.
My daughter has probably an iPhone 16, maybe 17, a real new one. And she says, I'm going to get rid of it. The battery just dies so quickly. I can't stand it. So I'm all for
It's
Apple
probably
products.
not
I don't know what.
Yeah, it's probably not a 17, but my recommendation on that is, let me show everybody where you can check on this. I'm going to pull my phone up again and share it. So hang on. Share desktop and go to so if you go into settings on your phone and then go to battery,
Settings and battery. Okay.
And then battery health will be down here, battery health, and it says it's normal. So mine says maximum capacity because I've been pretty good about this. I've had this phone since December, but hers might say 80% or 85% or whatever. So if it gets down around 85%, what that means is when you charge the phone to 100%, the capacity is 15% less than it was new. So if it lasts 10 hours, it'll only last 8.5 hours now, right? So that's what that battery health is. You can have the battery replaced for, I believe it's $69 or $79, and only ever have it done at an Apple store. Now, if hers and if she has Apple Care on the phone, Apple will replace it at 85 or 80% for no charge if you're if there's Apple Care, but that's how you test it. So in other words, it's like if you had a water pitcher that's got a gallon capacity, but you drop a bunch of dice in there and it takes up 15% of the capacity, you're only going to get 0.85 gallons in your gallon jug. That's what happens. The batteries degrade over time, and it just happens. And I usually don't see it be enough to worry about until it gets to 3 years old usually. So, but a 16 would be 2.5 years old at this point. The other thing you can do is when you're doing it, you can set your charging, and a way to make sure you have longevity with your battery is tell it to optimize if you want, or I keep mine and I only say charge to 80%. But when I'm traveling and I'm in Death Valley and things, I put it at 100%, but I also make sure I carry an extra battery with me. Or not an extra battery, excuse me, a backup battery that,
So if you charge it to 80%, and let's say she's down to 85, I'll check with her.
It would be effectively like 68% or something. But the thing is, I'm talking about this, if you normally charge it like this, it will help increase your battery life.
Okay.
Because charging to 100% will degrade your battery a bit faster, if that makes sense.
I see. Okay.
Same thing as on your car. Okay, let me unshare. Okay, Keith, go for it. You're muted.
Thank you.
Go
I
ahead,
have
Keith.
a minor problem that I hope you can tell me what I'm doing wrong. I have a studio computer that has an Apple display that's a very large one. It's like 24 inches across, which I use for the whole width and so forth for photography, editing, etc. But when I'm using other applications, I want the screen to be like 8.5 by 11 if I'm reading text, like a Word document or Excel or Safari or maybe the Mail app. I don't need the whole width of the screen, and sometimes I want to put two different windows up there to compare things. Anyway, when I'm doing one of these things at an 8.5 by 11 sized window, or I've reduced the size of what I'm looking at to that size, it'll suddenly expand and cover the whole width of the screen, like 24 inches from one side to the other, which is annoying to me. And the only way I can seem to be able to fix it is to go to my cursor to the right side edge and drag it toward the center, and go to the left side cursor and drag it to the center and get it back to where it was. I have no idea what it is I'm doing, or how is there a way to automatically set something in the computer to say, if I set it at this thing, keep it there. But it happens on different applications, so it's not a particular application specific problem.
Yeah, and one way, because I noticed it used to do that and it was really problematic to me, but it seems to be less of a problem. So when it goes, does it go so far that you lose the red, green, and yellow dots in your dock and everything? Because the other thing is I know that you have yours set up with different desktops, and when you're flipping back and forth
Yes.
between those.
Yeah.
Is that when it happens, is when you go between each one?
No, not at all. It
Okay,
happens when I'm in the middle of doing something in this particular document.
got
I'm
it.
writing
Keith,
text in the document.
yeah, I have the same problem, Keith.
Yeah, so what I think it's been less of a problem for me lately, but what I recommend is, and again, I think it's a software issue. And have you upgraded? Are you on Tahoe?
No,
Uh,
I'm,
it it's
I'm
it
on Sequoia 15.9,
yeah. I think it might get
15.7.
fixed. I think it might get fixed in Tahoe, but you have other issues with other software you have, so I would verify that that works with it first.
Yeah.
But what my solution for it was usually, if you go up into the area, not where the red, green, and yellow dots are, but find a gray space area there and double click on that, and many times it will retract back, because Windows are designed, if they're working properly, to open to the exact, in whatever app it is, open to the exact size it used to be. And I know what you're talking about. And since I've gone to Tahoe, it's not been an issue.
Okay. Yeah, and I
So,
have some older
Mary,
software
what one are
may
you
not
on?
work.
I'm on Tahoe and it occasionally happens to me too.
Did it used to do it more?
Nope, never used to do it.
Okay. Keith, go ahead.
Well, it's not it can't be a software issue with the application because it does it on multiple different applications.
No, it's a system software issue is what it
System
is.
software. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely a bug. And now that you've talked about it, it's gonna, of course, start happening on mine again. And thanks for that, because misery loves company.
Okay.
The damn thing, the iPad, the new OS and the iPad is doing that, where I try to move something and it reduces my screen. It's like, no, I want my screen full size on a damn, especially because I'm on a mini. It's small enough already.
I
So
was hoping you'd say if I do some keyboard command of command
no,
option
I think I've
T or
tried
something, it'll go
try it
away.
with it open and just try double clicking in that gray area and see if it helps. But and then Keith, here's my suggestion.
Yeah.
Go into Safari and type the question exactly how you liked it. My window resizes in Sequoia doing this, and let AI go out and search 50 websites for you. And the best part is it not just searches them, it will come back and define it and summarize it. And then if that's not it, say, well, no, I guess I meant this or something like that. So I would try that.
That's an interesting idea that I hadn't thought about. Yeah, I'll see what happens
Oh
with
my
it.
God, it's and I'm trying to be instructive in that because it is what I would do in that case to give you an answer, and I'd look like a hero. Well, it's because once you start doing this, it just is amazing. And again, it will usually come up with it. If you make it a long enough dialogue, it will usually come up in the AI. But if not, you saw where I clicked on the AI in the Google search, and then it does a bunch. But then the best part is, well, that's kind of close, but no, I meant when it does this or this disappears. And think of it this way. Think of it as you have something wrong with you and you go into the doctor and you say this, and then he'll ask you some questions. And then you come back and then it might further the questions, it'd be weird that, I mean, I have a thing, if I put a Q-tip in my right ear, it makes me itch somewhere, I mean, just stuff like that. But, I mean, everything's connected. And what you're doing is it's the difference. It's a tool. And there are people that take an electric drill and decide to pound the screw in with it when they could just use the electric drill to let it in and out. And this is a tool and it's useful. But again, I think to me, the biggest deal is, as when we did the hotel search, you can continue to refine it. But don't be afraid to give it, like I used to say in search, don't give it too much information because it'll filter out too much. In AI, I try to give it as much pertinent information as I can because it will further refine what comes back, and then you can decide to make it more broad or less broad.
Okay. Well, thank you
And
for the idea.
yeah.
I will try it and see what happens. If you really like being a hero, you could do this independently and then send me an email to tell me this is the solution.
Describe the situation. Well, no, you're going to do it, damn it.
Okay.
There's self-reliance. No, Keith, it's because it makes such a difference.
Okay.
I mean, Randy can attest to it. I mean, it will change the way you do things. And the best thing is, like, I have Grok in my car. I can carry on conversations. Why is the sky blue? And do this. And we're doing it by voice, hands-free. And it can read you things. You can tell it to dive deeper into this. And I love learning stuff. And that's the beauty of, and again, you don't have to type it in these. You can talk with voice to these AI agents.
Okay.
And it actually gets scary. And there are people that are starting to have relationships with them. And I'm sorry, not, there's this artificial in this artificial intelligence thing.
Okay.
The other Chris Dodson, go for it.
The two questions. Do any or all AI search engines search Reddit?
Most of them do, and Reddit is very good. And the beauty of it is Reddit is very effective, but man, to go down a long tail on that to try find something sometimes is very difficult. So, what's interesting is, like with Zoom, when Zoom first started, I was helping people with Zoom and we were going, and rather than go to Zoom's website, I was using Google and put in zoom.com and then asked what my question was, and it would go find it. And Zoom is very good. I mean, Zoom's help is fantastic, but it would go in and find it. And that's another thing you can do to restrict it. If I, for instance, wanted to only look at apple.com, in your search, say apple.com, and then after that, put in what you want to search there. And it will refine the search for that in regular search. and in AI. But here's the one thing. So we talked about history, and that's why it's important to be signed in, because it remembers things about you. So there is, in most AI, you have what's called incognito mode. In other words, no tracking, no history, anything like that. So let's say someone asked me a question about, and I'm sorry, it seems the way to talk about it, about menopause. I wouldn't want that in my profile because I'm a male. And so I used to say asking for a friend. Well, it turns out that doesn't really work. But if I do an incognito chat, me asking about menopause will not have it change my profile. If I ask, let's say I ask about how do you get, what's the best prosthetic device out there for a hand, you know, well, I don't want that to be in my profile because it would cloud. And it's not that I'm embarrassed or anything about that. It just clouds how it's going to give me results. So you always want to think about that. And for instance, was when it remembered that I only had about 100 yards of mobility, and it further remembered that. So, and I've since have told it, nope, I've got more mobility now and things like that. So,
Okay.
all right, Bev, go for it.
Oh, I had one other question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Sorry. About the phone battery charging. The optimized battery charging, I've always been afraid to use that because I have kind of irregular hours, and like if it learned one thing, but then my hours changed and I
Yeah, I
started, well,
agree.
yeah.
I agree. So I'm surprised mine was on because I didn't think it was on, but at 80%, it doesn't matter. So what I do is I manually keep it at 80%, but then I try to remember to, if I go. Now, I'm on the Apple upgrade program, so I get a new phone every year. So it really doesn't matter. For me, though, it's really important because my Mac Mini, I want to last for a while, and it will help maximize that. But and again, if you have a backup battery that you have with you and stuff, you have to worry less about it. But in fact, don't be so risk averse that it messes up, that you go out and you're out and you need to take photos that day and you don't have a full battery. Function of the phone is first. Batteries can be replaced very inexpensively, and Apple Care will cover it if you have Apple Care. Use that tool you have. Don't be afraid to use the electric drill because you don't have a backup battery kind of thing. It's a tool, use it. But yeah, I just think it's a way to do it. And the same thing applies like in our electric cars. But then there's some new batteries out there, and this is coming, is that, like, for instance, the Model 3, the new Tesla Model 3, two-wheel drive, they encourage you to charge it to 100% because it does not get degradation. And so therefore, what's really neat is on that, you essentially have a lot more range than you did. Now, I'm not afraid to charge my battery to 100%, and I charge it when I go traveling, and as long as I don't have it sit at 100% for my car. Same thing with the phone. It's just less abusive of it, but please don't let it take away from how much you can use it. And if there's a big storm coming and you might be out of power, it would be advisable to let it charge to 100%, because I talked back about people I know, two people I knew that got evacuated out of Paradise, and they had 12 minutes to get all their stuff together, and so.
Do you have a favorite backup battery for your iPhone? Travel?
I do, and again, that's super important because you're going to have to charge them, and they're a pocket full of power. So you want a good quality one, and I recommend Anker, Anker. They are, and to bring this full circle, I'm a firm believer, and nobody's ever said it, but when the iPhone first came out, other cell phones used to have replaceable batteries, clip in, clip out. It was very convenient. But two things. Apple was able to get the battery in there without a metal casing around it because the case protected it. They could get more battery for the same amount of place and the same amount of weight. But by not making it consumer replaceable, that alleviated the fact. Think about this. If they made the battery easy to replace, back then there were a lot of very bad batteries coming out of China. So can you imagine? The headlines would read, iPhone blows up in person's pocket, when it really is a replacement battery that somebody got for $13 off of Temu, and that's what blew up in the person's pocket. But it's iPhone. So I think, and that's super important. And you got to remember, lithium ion batteries carry a lot of power and they don't explode. What they do is they can catch fire and start a runaway, but that's really not a factor anymore. But the whole idea is that they're a lot of power, which is what we need for them to last for a long time. But with that power comes this ability to do stuff. But it's gotten better, and there's new materials out now. There's sodium batteries that realistically cannot catch fire, and they can go through as many charge cycles as they want. And battery technology is getting better all the time. And it is not like the old days where they said, run your battery down to 0 and then charge it fully. The hardest things on your battery is staying at 100% and letting it get warm for other reasons, or going below 20% is harder on it. That thing in the middle, and it's all called a charge cycle. These little ions go back and forth, and what happens is after time, less of them make the round trip, and that's what the degradation is. But the best part is those batteries can get recycled, and every bit of the battery can be put into new batteries, and it's back like new. Go ahead, Bev.
Yeah, it's a Zoom question. I think I've had this problem before, maybe a simple answer. In with the one of the later versions, you could on the chat sending a message. You can do everyone, or then there's the new chat, and where you can select it, just a private message. And I tried to send one to you and also one to Mary that I
I've
can't.
not used Zoom chat, so I don't know. Oh,
Okay.
I mean the chat in this. Oh,
Yeah.
so when you're
Well,
doing
and
that,
so I typed one in to you and also then tried Mary, and it won't send. And so yeah, which was just odd.
well,
And the message is I can't be at the board meeting, but
okay, well, thanks. So, what I in that case, what I do every time I use Zoom, at the end of a Zoom, I go up and see if there's an update.
yeah.
And that might be it. Something could be weird. There could be something else on.
I see one from Mary has just come in, a
Yeah.
test. I
Well,
got that,
anyway,
but
speaking of that, Kathy, one last question. And then, by the way, Elaine and Lisa, and Randy and Mary, I will close this one out. And then at quarter till, fire up the other one, because I need it to save the assets, like all of our stuff that's gone here, as a separate meeting. So just so you know, it's not kicking you guys out, but I'll do that as soon as we get done with Kathy's last great question. Good to see you again.
Very, thank you. You too. Very quick question. I had a portable battery storage thing and it didn't seem to work. Do they degrade over 6 or 7 years?
Well, oh yeah, they'll definitely degrade. So there's calendar life and there's uses and stuff, and calendar's part of it. But the other thing too is the best way to store rechargeable batteries like that for a lengthy time is have them charged between 40 and
Okay.
50%. And they do a good job of shelf life and stuff. But if they're fully charged, then that's going to be a little bit drain on the battery. But if
Got
they go
it.
all the
Got
way
it.
down, that can kind of make them fail. But yeah, they've gotten better in time. So what happens is the battery that may have the same amount of power, in other words, how many times it can recharge your phone, may be lighter now because it's more efficient. So yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
and again, Anchor is really, really good. And you got to remember, you're charging that thing next to your head, next to your on on your nightstand and thing, you guys got to be careful. So, and try to get one, the newer ones, because if your phone is a USB-C, you want to make it be a USB-C. Anchor makes quite a few of them make it where you charge it and it will actually MagSafe to the back of your iPhone and just stick on your iPhone like that.
Oh,
And that's a great one. I have a crossbody water fly thing, and I keep one of those in there all the time, and I have it if I need it. But you also want to, maybe if you need an iPad or something, or a regular one where you have a cable, but try to get it set up so you can carry the cable in it with you traveling, because inevitably that does it. One thing to be careful of, and if it's really hot, like we're going to be in Africa, it's not going to be super hot when we're there, but the idea is that charging it will warm it up a bit. So be judicious about when you charge it, because if you go to take a bunch of pictures, your phone can heat up, especially the 16s heat it up a lot, so you don't see the screen very well, and therefore it makes it tough. The 17s are much better for cooling, but it was an issue for me in Southeast Asia when it was really warm. It was, sometimes I was having timeout time with the thing. So charging will make it warm, especially wireless charging, and the fact that you're already doing warm from it. It was problematic. The 17's been better, but I remember being in the bus, sometimes I would hold it right by the air conditioner vent if I was having to charge it, to kind of not do it. And it's all a matter of, being prepared with what
okay.
you've got, and charge it before you need the charge. Oh, the other thing is, on your iPhone, if you're out in the middle first of all, a lot of times it heats up because you have no cell signal. And its first job is to try to get a cell tower and make phone calls for you. Not that we make phone calls anymore, but it's constantly looking for a tower, and that uses a lot of energy. So you can put it in airplane mode, which will help the battery a lot, or at 20%, it asks if you want to go to low power mode. But what I've done is I go into low power mode before I knew it. And then it's not doing any of these background refreshes. But airplane mode makes it so it's not trying to find these cell signals that aren't there. And that will help with battery life and temperature of the phone dramatically.
That's interesting because she lives in London and lots of times it says unstable connection as she's walking around. So that could be degrading her
could be,
battery.
but it shouldn't be enough. And if that thing's a 16, it can't be more than 2.5 years old. But have her do that battery thing to see
She
what
did.
it
She
says.
said it's 91%. So
So
she
so
just
it's
emailed me.
so it's 9% less than it was in the beginning. Does she
Yeah.
use Facebook and Messenger?
No.
Okay. So the other
Well,
thing is there are battery hungry apps, and in the battery health thing, it'll show you what's using a lot of it. But a GPS
okay.
app, unless when you're not using it, can run and in the background be really huge. And I don't recommend force quitting because it really doesn't do much unless an app is misbehaving. Oh, screen
Okay.
brightness is another thing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
91%
Understand
isn't too bad. In fact, they wouldn't even recommend replacing it
Yeah.
with that. So have her figure it out, and yeah. So
Thanks.
good luck.
I'll talk with her. Oh, thanks.
And feel free to give her my email if she has further questions.
I
Okay.
was going to do that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, everybody. I'm going to quit this. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys in a little bit.
All righty.
Good luck, Pete. Okay. Oh, I'm going to stop the recording first.